You're listening to the N.W.A, the Nubian Wrestling Advocates.
You are now about to witness the strength of street knowledge.
Yo,
We live.
it's Righteous Reg. It's a case for the safe, keep a space for the Nubians. Unfiltered, off-kilter, the professor, the godfather, host wrestling the N.W.A, not keep guessing, The views and expressions, you know the rest, it's pod excellence, get the message. Advocates for Nubian wrestling, you're listening to the best again. Black wrestling in the ring we invested in. Nubian kings and queens we invested in. It's for the culture and we reppin' it. It's for the culture and we reppin' it.
And welcome to the NWA Podcast, the Nubian Wrestling Advocates, the only show that's going to talk about getting color in the professional wrestling business. We are back for our April edition of the program. So glad that y'all could join us live here on a Saturday night or not live in the future somewhere. You might be on the train, you might be on a plane, you might be on a bus somewhere going to work or coming back from work listening to this. So we appreciate you for listening. It's going to be a big show, y'all. We got a big guest coming on here a little bit later, and we have so many big stories to talk about. Andrew said it before we even got on the mic. It seems like every month for the past 3 or 4 months that we've done the show, 2 names always seem to pop up, and they back again this month. But before we get into why we're here, let us let you know who we are. We are, of course, the Advocates. I am the Godfather, Nate Milton. 10 years in the game, ain't a damn thing changed. I still remain your favorite podcaster's favorite podcaster. And joining me, we got the nephew, ladies and gentlemen, the youngest in charge, the man that brings you all the news that's fit to read. Give it up for Andrew Thompson, ladies and gentlemen. Nephew, what's good, brother?
Brother Nate, what's going on, man? How you feel? It's always good to see you, man. See you and Chris. Bring a big smile to my face, man. It's always good to talk to you guys. And on this April 22nd day, man. Almost May. Yes. It's almost May. Look at this, man.
This year have flown by, Andrew, for real.
We done 4 months into the new year already, man. It's about to be over before you know it. And then we'll be 2024, and then Roman Reigns finally gonna lose the world title. There you
go. Who knows? Maybe Roman Reigns, if you listen to the next member of the team, maybe Roman Reigns will lose to The Rock in 2024. Because this man out here is the angry intellectual. He is the mayor of Los Angeles, still recovering from that big party down in LA for WrestleMania week. Y'all give it up for the angry intellectual himself. Some call him Modern Chris. Some call him Mimosa Chris. I just call this man the Professor. Y'all give it up for the Professor Kris Ealy. Can we rock?
Hey, what's up, man? First of all, Alexa lights.
There we go. I was about to say, Chris, you was over there looking like a lot.
This brother out here setting the mood.
My man was looking like a law character. I was like,
I'm trying to. I need to. I'm still out of it. Still recovering from WrestleMania weekend. So, so that weekend at WrestleMania is when I started feeling under the weather, and then it just never got better until I went to the hospital last week. And then found out I had low potassium levels, low sodium levels, low or dehydrated. I don't even know how you have low sodium levels and dehydrated at the same time, but that was me for the last month or so since WrestleMania. But But yeah, it's good to be here, man. It's good.
But you back now, Chris. You
Back.
back.
Yeah,
now.
Brother is back. You can't keep him down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, we are glad that you're back, Chris, man. You know, we are excited for this episode this month, and we are also glad for the assembled postmarks out here. Everybody tuning in tonight. We are going to get into so many big topics, and we know that Chris and Andrew and our special guests have a lot of thoughts. But if you have thoughts, there's one way to jump the line. There's one way to skip to the front of the line. There is one way. This is a treat for everybody watching. I'm gonna pull back here.
Oh my God.
There's one way to make them say, nah. And that's by hitting that super chat button. Ladies and gentlemen, hit that super chat button. Get to the front of the line. Chris, Andrew, and I will chop up your thoughts on our discussion tonight. Chris, I got to send you one of these, man. You know, one of these fresh Cody fits.
Oh,
brother.
I would have worn. Oh, and Emilio, shout out to him at the when we were at Wale Mania.
Mm-hmm.
He was calling Cody Devante on stage and stuff like that, man. That was a nightmare. Wale Mania, not because it wasn't a good event, but because
did almost finally see you on these streets?
He wasn't there, man. And then I got press for that event.
Okay.
But my girlfriend didn't get my fiance now, she didn't get any press, and this one dude I went to fucking college with, and he was acting like I was some dude off the street that he couldn't let me in the backstage area or anything like that. So and by the time I texted Emilio, he was already about to be on stage. So that was my fault. I didn't know Wale Mania blew up to what it blew up.
Oh yeah, bro.
You ain't know the protocol.
Yeah. Because the first event I went to in San Francisco, it was like at a night spot. It was like at a bar, and it was real easy to like get backstage. You know, yo, this is Chris. What and it was got dapped up and stuff like that. At this year's Wall of Mania, that wasn't happening, man. I needed to be there like 2.5 hours.
This really was WWE booking. Chris took the L in his own hometown.
I know. And my cousin was there too, and he was like, "I thought you were supposed to be working press." He saw my woman at the concession stand, and I was like, "I am supposed to be working press, but I can't leave my woman around these, wrestlers." There was a press area that they let us sit in, but as far as getting backstage, that just wasn't happening at this year's Wale Mania. So, but hey, Andreas, go ahead.
Speaking of Omos, Chris, Seth Rollins versus Omos announced a Backlash. Immediately,
the match that people want to see.
And they have not interacted, bro. I don't think in like 4 years. I don't know where this is coming from, Vince. That's probably where it's coming from. But when they announced this match, like I had saw it on Twitter last night. I'm trying to figure out like what in the blue hell are they doing with Seth Rollins, and number two, where's this Omos program coming from? Like what are they trying to do with Omos exactly? But I just wanted to get Brother Chris's direct thoughts about what you thought about that match announcement when you first saw it.
I mean, I don't think about WWE match announcements. I just kind of go with whatever they're saying. I do think that so somebody told me, I don't want to like be repeating, like giving out names or whatever, but somebody said that WWE is about to start releasing folks and nobody is safe. So I don't know what this Omos thing is about. I don't know if like
Don't you wish evil on this, Brother Chris?
I don't. Look, man. I didn't even wish evil on Cody. I wanted that brother to win, and we saw how WWE does that. I just knew
he need more adversity, Chris. He need more adversity.
Yeah, that's stupid.
He need more hard times, if you will.
No, yeah.
And not the Chris point about the
I feel like hold on, Andrew, real quick, because Chris brought up that name. Chris brought up the name Cody Rhodes, or as we know him, Cody Devante Rhodes. And I feel like we've all got thoughts, you, me, and Chris, but there's one man, Andrew, who might even be more qualified to talk about this man, Cody Rhodes, than us.
Who could it be?
You could call this man a Cody connoisseur. You could call him a Devante documentarian because he actually did a documentary on this brother.
A Hakimian.
You can even call him a Rhodes. You call him a Rhodes scholar, Chris.
Yeah.
I guess this week is somebody that folks should be real familiar with. He is a dear friend of the program, even though he's never ever been on the program before. He is the executive producer of First We Feast. But most importantly, maybe my favorite title for this man that we're about to bring on, he is one half of the bromance. Ladies and gentlemen, coming all the way live from the satellite of hate. Welcome back to Post Wrestling, Brian Mann.
Hey.
Hello, thank you. That's not me clapping. I appreciate that. Chris, great to meet you. Andrew, I promise I won't reveal that I didn't watch the wrestling pay-per-view that we all swore we would watch and review together. This is not Bound for Glory 2018 or 17 or whatever that was. Great to be with you guys. And by the way, if we want to talk about backstage,
good to be back with you, brother, man.
Yeah, if we want to talk about backstage at WrestleMania Mania, there's some stories. This was a fun WrestleMania. This was I was out in LA. It was a great couple of days. The excitement was palpable. Everyone knew what we were building up to, and then it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's start here then, Chris. Let's start here, Brian, because we've got a lot to talk about this week. You know, there's so many stories that just in the week after WrestleMania popped up that we can chop up. But let's start with the main event of night 2 of WrestleMania. And again, I alluded to your familiarity with Cody Devante Rhodes. So kind of give your impressions on that match and where we've come since then, now leading into this Brock Lesnar program, sir.
I mean, so one of the credits we didn't mention there off the top was the YouTube channel that I have, Outside Interference, where I've done some, little videos or whatnot, recapping various feuds and
the unfinished Cody Rhodes project.
There is an unfinished Cody Rhodes project. There is currently now also an unfinished Roman Reigns project that one day might see the light of day. I really have to stop making these things before we know the end of the story. The very first thing I did was the Kenny Hangman story. We're like, we all know where this is going to end. And then it ended there. So I was able to do it. The MJFC and Punk thing I actually did right after the match, so we all knew the full story. Everyone knew where this was headed. Everyone knew where this thing was headed. Roman Reigns is going to finally lose to Cody Rhodes because the entire story was we have to do this to honor Dusty Rhodes. And if we don't do this, then this entire company is shitting on Dusty Rhodes. And then they didn't do it. So, they might do it eventually, but it does feel like they maybe missed this very special moment.
100%.
Like the closest thing I could compare this to, and it obviously isn't to this extreme, but it almost reminds me of WrestleMania 17, where WrestleMania night 1 and night 2, this was one of the best WrestleManias of all time. And being in LA and being in that building, and also there's the room of the news of the Endeavor sale is, starting to come out. And it just feels like, wow, the excitement is palpable. This is the peak. This is the height of what Hunter has done, and also kind of the peak of Vince's entire life work, because they're about to sell this thing. And now we're going to enter into this new exciting period. And then it didn't happen. And it just sort of let the air out of the balloon. And the last month of WB programming kind of feels the same way. We all thought we were going to see this new exciting thing of there's a new face of the company. Cody now has this weight on his shoulders. And also, what happens to the bloodline? They've lost everything. They don't have their titles. What does that mean? They're now in this personality crisis.
Talk to him, Brian. We
didn't get that. Instead, we're getting this Backlash show, which I think is going to be a really fun, exciting event, but it's being main evented by a meaningless 6-man tag. And and a Brock match, which my feeling is I do think Cody eventually wins this thing. Maybe they feel that Roman's just the best, face of the company. I mean, there's more I could get into, but I feel like I'm hijacking the conversation around Cody. I want to hear what everyone else has to say. But then there's like additional that I want to talk about around the thoughts and the energy just being there after the show.
Brother, let me jump in here real quick because I got to piggyback off what Brian
Go
said.
ahead, nephew.
Brian made some really great points, and just to follow up on what he was saying, I'm thinking so like when we like just like how you said, even dating back to after the match that he had against Seth Rollins at Hell in a Cell, I think the consensus amongst most people was that whenever they do this Cody Roman match, Cody's probably going to be the person to take the titles off him. He comes back. Mm-hmm. They set this thing up like grandiose, like you couldn't have set it up any better. This dude got to skip like 8 months of booking just to come back in the Royal Rumble, and then he had this grandiose return, won the Royal Rumble, killed it on the promos on the lead up to WrestleMania. Like Cody couldn't have came off as a bigger star than he did. We get to WrestleMania, crowd going crazy for him. Family at ringside. They had Brody Jr. at ringside, having the weight belt. You like they set this thing up perfectly to make you think that this man was about to do this and he was about to win the titles. And like fast forward to present day where we are right now, I'm trying to figure out like you do this match with Cody, right? And Cody and Brock. You would like that's a world title caliber match. You would think that would be for the undisputed WWE Universal titles. And the one thing that I can't stand is like the talking point that I keep seeing is like, and this is like mostly among those that are like in WWE for the most part. Like you hear from like Road Dogg or like legends that are contracted to the company. So they are going to rule in favor of what has already been done. They're not going to go against the grain for the most part. And they keep saying that Cody needs more adversity. Right. That's like the main thing I'm saying, the more adversity. Yeah. I'm trying to figure out like what more adversity could you need than a company you having to leave a company and start a whole other company just to be considered amongst that top tier class or just to be considered in the same rank as the guy that is holding the world title. He left, dude started a whole other company, the rival company, a major wrestling company that hasn't been seen in over, I don't know how many years, 20 years or so. And then he left his own company to come back. And this dude's like the biggest star that he can be. And the question and the note of he needs more adversity is still like lingering around there, and that's something I will never understand. And like they like and like how Brian said, you could do this again, but like I don't think that you'll ever be able to recapture the same atmosphere that you had at WrestleMania. Like people, they were ready for that. And like speaking on the Bloodline story, I'm sitting in and I'm like, okay, Jey Uso and Jimmy Uso lost the tag titles, right? Okay, we move on from that. And even going back past that, I remember when Cody Rhodes had that promo segment on Raw when he legit laid out what most of what I saw on social media, what people thought was a great plan of how the bloodline should crumble. Jay eventually gets fed up with Roman. He dips out. Jimmy's not going to leave his brother again, so he dips out. And then Roman eventually has a falling out with Solo. And then last is Heyman. And then the bloodline just crumbles from that point on. And like I thought that was a very, very good story that they could have told. But now you opting to go a route of where what I think is going to happen is we're going to get a situation in the WWE draft where the titles get split. And like honestly, I think it would have been a better route for Cody to come out of WrestleMania as champion. We have the draft. Cody's given the babyface choice of whether he wants to choose between the Universal title or the WWE title. Cody, of course, is going to choose the WWE World title because that's the one that's associated with Dusty. And then at that, you have the Universal title, you crown another champion. Or better yet, if you want Roman to still be champion, you could put Roman in a tournament or such for the Universal title and have him win the damn title back. And then you right back at where you want to be as far as Roman being a champion. It might not be the days consecutive, but you still right back where you want to be. I just don't get like it feels just like how Brian said. It feels like we're like in the same spot. I feel like post WrestleMania it's supposed to feel like a new chapter, like a new beginning. But it feels like we're like in the exact same spot that we were pre WrestleMania.
Yeah, it feels like
Chris's point. Chris and I were on. Real quick, Brian, I was going to say, first of all, shout out to Muggin for the super chat. He says Detroit is going to be the burial site of the tribal saga. We will see the bloodline saga. But Chris and I were on SP3 show, True Hill Heat. Detroit, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, SummerSlam, okay.
For SummerSlam. But Chris and I were on True Hill Heat, and Chris said the Usos losing on night 1 and then Roman winning on night 2 felt like watching Endgame before Infinity War, where we've been telling this big story, and we had this big cathartic moment of Sami and Kevin winning on night 1, Brian, and then we're supposed to finish the job. We're supposed to take Thanos out in the end, and then nope, Thanos finds a way to snap one more time, and that's how we end this story.
Yeah, I feel like there are different ways to do this, and I kind of have a feeling, and this is just me projecting, that when they started telling the story, this was not the ending that they saw. I feel like the Endeavor sale, Vince coming back and getting more involved, I do think changed it a little bit. And listen, I can also see it from the company side. You left, you created the competition, you came back, you're undefeated, you're not beating the top guy first round out. I can see how they feel like you got to humble yourself just a little.
Right.
But if it were me, the way
you're gonna smash at my throne.
Exactly. Like the way I think you could have done it in a way that was not, it feels a little cheap, but I also think could have got you something is, Cody wins the Rumble, and then Paul Heyman, being like, he's the, he's the advocate. He gets in there and he says, listen, you won the Royal Rumble. Congratulations. That allows you to challenge for a title, not both titles. My client has 2 titles. You don't get to challenge for both of them. And and he has to pick which one's he going to go for. And he goes for the WWE title. That's the belt that his dad didn't win. That's the lineage. And he beats Roman. Now, that's a big deal because Roman has not been pinned in like 3 years. However, Roman's Universal title reign, that continues. There's just an asterisk that in that 1,000-day reign, he also held this other belt for a year. A little underwhelming, but he at least gets to pin Roman. And then you can do a big rematch down the line where you put both belts on the line. And it's Roman and the one guy who's beaten him. And can Cody do it all? Or does Roman need to establish that he's still the top guy? That's one way to get around it. It's just that I think Cody losing that night really let a lot of air out of the balloon. And I think really killed a lot of momentum and excitement for what people thought they were about to see. I think to keep the belt on Roman, for him to just then disappear for a while, he'll be in Saudi Arabia, and in Saudi, that show is going to be the 1,000th day of his reign. Now, I don't think that you have Cody beat him in Saudi. I don't know who else could even be the person to challenge him in Saudi, quite frankly. And then does Cody win? I can see Cody winning Money in the Bank, and then he uses that to get a shot at SummerSlam. And maybe this whole thing is Cody's going to eventually be the one to beat Roman, and we just had to humble him first. Okay, fine, whatever. But I don't know. I feel like they lost the chance, and I think that I don't think that the balloon, I don't think the air is going to be there in the same way. Right. But I will say, having been at Mania, and afterwards, after night 2, I went back and I was actually at the talent hotel and meeting with a lot of the roster, and the general feeling was that, Cody will get it back. Don't worry, that's not a big deal. And also, we've got this big sale going on, and Roman's going to be on the Today Show tomorrow, and he's the guy that you want to have be on the Today Show.
Right.
You want Bianca, you want Roman. They're the faces of your company, not the bleach blonde dude with a neck tattoo. So that's where I can kind of see that Roman's the face. Roman's still the guy. Yeah. And I can get that when you're entering this huge, new, bold direction for your company, you want Roman. You want Roman to be the centerpiece.
Yeah, I really do love that idea, though, of Heyman with the stip.
It's a little underwhelming, but
Cody has to make a choice.
Yeah.
I say, but when I'm looking at this thing, man, it's like just like how Brian said, dude. It's like I don't think that you'll be able to recapture that same atmosphere that existed at Mania. That seemed like the perfect moment to cry, and especially coming off of Sami and KO defeating the Usos. Like that just felt like the perfect follow-up. And then on top of that, the finishes to the match, exactly, man. You had KO and Sammy hit both of their finishes on Roman. Like first of all, so like especially leading up to WrestleMania, the whole idea about Sammy possibly being inserted to the match, the whole Sammy Mania thing was going crazy at the moment, and the idea of him being affiliated in that match, or like whatever was going on, right? Sammy, the moment that he hit the haluva kick on Roman, I felt like that probably should have been like Cody should have scooped him up for the crossroads, and that should have been it, right? Like that was like the perfect little moment right there to end that. But like I just don't think that they'll be able to recapture that same atmosphere. Like if they do it at SummerSlam, I'm sure the crowd will be going crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't think it's gonna be like, oh, they're gonna be booing it. But like that moment at Mania, man, like they had every opportunity to strike, and they passed on it. And then the crazy thing is, bro, this is the fourth time they done this. The fourth out of the third or fourth time they done this. They did it with Drew and Cardiff. They passed on the big moment. They passed on it with Sammy, and then they passed on it with Cody. Like I'm trying to how many more of these like mega moments, like title change moments, are you going to have to do something like this in Roman's reign?
I guess I have to be the pessimist in this thing. Cody is donezo, yo. He's they missed their opportunity with the guy. He's not gonna ever be what he was WrestleMania weekend this month. That's just done. I was on Twitter and arguing with a bunch of fools. I don't really argue. They say their shit, and I just let them go. This to
as
me,
you would want to do.
Yeah, this to me is like taking your kids to see The Little Mermaid, and then Ariel loses her voice in The Little Mermaid.
Your camera off, Chris. Yeah, your camera off.
Damn, Disney got shooters. They took Chris's camera out the frame. Play with the mouse if you want, Ealy.
No, but
never fails.
Now I'm about to say, but until Chris get back, I was just gonna say, like with Brock and Cody, well, I think Brock gonna squash him.
Don't do that, Andrew.
I think Brock gonna squash him, bro, in Puerto Rico, because I don't think that's headlining the show. I think Brock gonna get a quick little
the Bad Bunny match, right? That's the headliner.
Yeah,
probably that more than likely. And I don't know, but I just feel like they about to like overdo this whole hard times thing with Cody, and they're gonna try to bring this dude all the way. Like I literally feel like I'm watching the same storyline involving John Cena
with Cena
came out of facing The Rock, and the next night after Mania he got beat down by Brock, and then they told the whole breakdown and like how he had to build himself back up. Like first and foremost, who is trying to wait till April of next year to see Cody finally do this? Bro, I'm not trying to wait that long to see that shit, man. Like, dude, bro,
nah,
a whole year, bro. I'm not trying to wait to see that. Like, this needs to happen at some point between now and August. Like that is when this needs to happen. And I'm like, but just the way that I'm sort of like watching it play, and I could be wrong. Cody probably might get the win at Backlash, but I think Brock won. He gonna squash him, but he gonna win. That's what I think.
I mean, depending on how that match goes, it's going to really tell us what their thoughts are. I mean, part of me in my mind could see, hey, we're going to beat Cody now. He is long-term, the plan, and we want to give him a really big rehab win. And I do think Brock is at a point in his career now where he is going to do what they ask him to do. He's not going to really put people over. Like he's not going to, he's not going to, overexert himself, but like he doesn't have Heyman fighting his battles. He's not going to be the champion. If you think about what happened at Mania this year, his job was to make Almost look good. And he really did. And I can tell you after I'll name drop here for a second. Like, talking with MVP after Mania, like he was like, this guy really proved himself. This guy, like and everyone backstage was saying, almost went to a different level on that show because He looked like a monster. He controlled that match. And yeah, he didn't win, but he worked 95% of it. And then Brock got his finish and, whatever, he left and got home early. Almost really proved himself in that match, but Brock was willing to give that to him. And I think that's where Brock is now. And that's why when I look at the Cody match, I could totally see Brock just being like, oh, you need me to do the favors? Great. Because he's not playing the politic card anymore. He's not trying to be the biggest guy. He knows that Brock's probably got maybe 2 or 3 more years left. He's just getting the money. And the way to get money now is to show the company, I'll play games. I'll go along. I won't necessarily put anyone over that isn't the top guy. I'm not going to help you build the next Brock Lesnar, but I will prove that I'm here to be a utility player. Exactly. So that also being said, this is his first match since turning heel. But we also know he's not going to challenge Brock. He's not going to challenge Roman. They've established that. So what do you do? So it's maybe him, I could see him, getting a sneak win over Cody, and then they have a rematch in Saudi that Cody wins. I could totally see that. I could see this being a multi-match thing.
That's some WWE shit right there.
But that's a WWE shit,
I can see that.
And the Saudis love Brock. The Saudis love seeing Brock Lesnar.
I can see that.
It's one of their favorite things.
I could see Cody Rhodes losing every single match that he has with Brock Lesnar.
Yeah.
I hope I'm wrong, but WWE gives me no reason to believe anything else. And like I was saying before, Disney pulled the plug on me. I think Cody Rhodes losing at WrestleMania would be like taking your kids to see The Little Mermaid and Ursula winning at the end, and her and Eric going off having a bunch of octopus babies, and that's the end of the movie. This is I don't understand this.
Hey, Chris, check your mic real quick, Chris, because you dropping gems here, but I don't think the people can hear the gems.
All right, sorry about that. I'm on my tablet now because I didn't want to be messing with my
I better say, because I can hear you all good.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So if you're running into,
there you go.
All right.
Yep.
But yeah, to me, from a storytelling perspective, it made no sense to me. I'm all about story progression. And Cody had this halo effect going into WrestleMania that no other wrestler in that company had at the moment. And it's very hard to achieve, especially in professional wrestling. And I think as a company, as storytellers, you owe it to yourself and you owe it to the people that are invested in your product to tell a story where the good guy wins, especially considering the route they were going with it, right? I don't want to see Roman Reigns hold the title until Philadelphia next year. I was done with this shit on WrestleMania night. I was like, okay, this is a complete story. It didn't get old to me until the Monday after WrestleMania. Then I was like, okay, I'm done with this. And then I was watching SmackDown, something that I don't really do on a regular basis. And Solo Sikoa is doing the same kind of shit that he did at WrestleMania.
Yeah,
it's the same exact thing, just told over and over and over. And I do think that again, another thing in science fiction is this idea of villain decay, where the villain is a big bad for so long, but then the next bad guy comes up and he's going to be even more powerful than the bad guy that just got done. That happened with Yokozuna when Vader WWE, right? It's like we're on to the next big bad. So now Yokozuna's got to be a good guy. Roman Reigns It just makes no sense to me from a storyline perspective. And that was the thing about the Dominique Rey Mysterio thing that I was arguing with people about, saying Rey should have passed the torch and stuff. That wasn't the story they were telling. The story they were telling was,
right,
Dominique is a horrible son, and he needs to get his ass whipped. And after Rey Mysterio beats him, you could start a new story, but that story needs to be complete in that fashion, you know. And I just, again, it makes no sense. Everybody who like all the WWE employees and even some of the non-employees saying that were talking about how much they loved what Vince McMahon and what they did with Roman Reigns and him winning. They sound,
they lying like hell,
like,
bro. They don't believe that.
Dumbasses, in my opinion. Not calling them disingenuous dumbasses. I'm saying they sound like disingenuous dumbasses.
They're displaying the behavior of such.
Yeah, you don't know how to tell a story. Is like you don't know how to tell a story where the good guy wins and then he faces a new challenge. Is it that hard to do? Is my main question.
Well, it's like
T. Anthony said. Like it's like if Goku lost to Frieza on Planet Namek. Like we all know about that.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure Brian is down with his Dragon Ball mythology. He knows what he's getting at.
Yeah, that's the is that the one with Jesse McCartney? Who is in that movie? Was the live action one that they did in like the mid 2000s?
Yeah, that garbage one. Yeah.
The guy who looks like the dude from Green Day in the lead role. Yeah, I mean I think that the tough thing with all this Roman, it's that this is the thing that I think what makes pro wrestling such a unique art form, and why when people want to criticize the creative and compare it to, say, any new Breaking Bad or any scripted show on television, pro wrestling is a live show that is done once a week, and the story that everyone agrees to in week one, people might change their minds by the time you get to the end. And I really do think when this story started, everyone thought they were going to tell the story of Cody winning. But man, that Sunday being in that building, it really felt like Roman shows up in the morning and says that finish doesn't work for me, brother. And that's really what it felt like,
Cody needs to work on his tan, brother.
Well, and it feels, and it really is, listen, I'm the top dog around here. Look at everything I've achieved. And this guy who left the company is just going to waltz in here and be undefeated and beat me on the first time out. Not going to work for me. And especially when it's for all the marbles. Like, that's the other thing that's tough. Like, to be a fantasy booker for a second, it's like, here's what I want to see. Sammy or Jimmy and Jay, night one, Roman tells him, go out there, get this thing done and do it on your own, because I didn't tell you to go and get yourselves booked in a tag title match. I beat both those guys on my own. So this is now your problem. They go out and they lose. And night two, Roman's like, so great, it's on me. It's on my shoulders. I'm the only one in the bloodline who has gold now. Let's make sure I don't lose it. And then main event comes. Jimmy, Jay, Solo, they don't come out. They don't help Roman. Roman has to fight a fair fight, and he loses. The next night, Bloodline's got nothing. And Roman's out there saying, we got to go back. We got to get this back, and it's up to me. And he's berating the guys. And that's when Jay kind of does the Batista, thumbs down, something like that. And the rest of the guys beat him down. Because if you remember when Solo first showed up, the whole story was Roman didn't know he was coming. The elders sent him because they didn't think he could win. Yeah. They didn't think he could beat Drew. So we've established that the elders have their doubt. And I think the new story is Roman's not the head of the table. The elders have decided that Jay is now the head of the table. And Roman can now disappear for a while. Yeah. I would also love the idea if, we're going to if we want to establish each show has their own main title. We've got the draft coming up. I would say in the draft, you go to Sammy and KO, you go to Cody, you say, listen, you can't hold 2 shows belts at the same time. The bloodline was running everything. We don't want that again. So what we're going to say is in the draft, you can pick which show you want to be on.
It's so
but
simple,
then you have to give up the other show. You know, it's the easiest way to get the belt off them without it being like this crazy convoluted thing. And then, you know, while I'm just spinning, and again, this is like, it'd be great if everyone just did what I wanted them to do. But Jey Uso then becomes the champion on SmackDown. And we're eventually getting to Roman comes back. Roman's now the baby face. Jey is the head of the table. So Roman is he's still your top baby face. And the thing is, I think sometimes to get the guy to take the finish he doesn't want to do, you have to tell him what he's doing next. And if the next thing for Roman is, well, Cody wins and you go away for a while. That finish doesn't work for me, brother.
That's
what happens.
You want to know what? Like that point about them, like Cody and them, like if that was the case, and they end up doing like a tournament or something for the Universal title on SmackDown, and then Jey becomes the champion, and then like you said, like with Roman coming back and being like, what are you doing, bro? Like you serious right now? Like you really trying to one up me or whatever like that, bro? That seems like such a simple story that you would think that they would go and eventually tell. Yeah. But lo and behold, here we are. Same thing, and we probably not gonna see this dude drop the title until April 2024. So
it's gonna be a while. Yeah,
I'm laughing at Megan's comment. I'm getting pretty sick of Uso Ex Machina.
The Uso Ex Machina.
Like I said, I do think you reach a point with a story that you've been telling for as long as they've been telling this story, where people were along with you for the ride with the Usos. It was filled of ups and downs and twists and turns and all that good stuff. And WrestleMania was the night that needed to end. If you weren't going to end it at WrestleMania, there needed to be some kind of crazy twist at the end of it that would keep you invested for how much long they want to do it. Because again, I'm not sitting through this for a year. I'm just not going to do it. I will look for updates from y'all on Twitter because y'all are doing that. I will read websites. I'll read The Observer or Keller or whatever and see what happens. But I just do not have the
bandwidth,
emotional fortitude to sit through this bullshit until even saying it out loud just annoys me that we have to wait for this thing to climax or to come to an end at WrestleMania in Philadelphia. Like seriously, my dude.
Well, and the thing that's gonna cap it off is we'll get a little Uzi performance right before the main event. Can't wait.
Yes, can't wait. We got to bring a little Uzi back.
I'll if I could throw one of the. Oh yeah.
I was just gonna say real quick before I pass the time to you, Brian. I feel like a point that you hit on is a part of the reason this story was designed in the first place. At least, when you and I have had conversations about this going back 2-3 years, is ultimately we want Roman Reigns to end up as one of our top baby faces. Because when this whole thing started, he was the guy they were trying to force on the audience as a baby face, and the audience was not buying what they were selling. And I think through this, it's like, not only do I feel like you're prolonging this bloodline story, at least this part of the bloodline story, longer than it needs to be, but it's like, now we just got to wait that much longer for that Roman babyface that you want. But also, you've stunted Cody's growth, because I do think Cody's going to get the belt here sooner rather than later.
Get it.
I got a trunk full of these Cody shirts I got to unload, Brian. I got one in your size if you need one, my brother. But I feel like, you're only going to get that one chance to have the big moment. Cody will have a moment, but it won't be that moment that he could have had, 2 or 3 weeks ago. And so it's like the law of diminishing returns. So I feel like Cody's going to win it because the story dictates that Cody has to win. If not, what have we been investing our time in? But it did leave me feeling flat. And that's a sad thing, I think, Brian, because overall, I really did enjoy both nights of WrestleMania this year.
I agree. I think night 1 was certainly stronger, but night 2 was still very, very good. And it was, talking to that, Roman being the top baby face. Again, I'm playing fantasy booker here, but it's like you tell the story of Jay is now this thing that Roman has created. Like, if you go back and you see who Roman was, or who Jay was in 2020 and who he is now in 2023, and Roman did that to him. Roman poisoned him. And now Roman has to deal with that. And if Roman gets beat down the night for WrestleMania, and then he disappears, and he finally comes back, and he's humbled, and he's saying he's sorry, and he knows that he caused this. And now we're telling the story of him trying to bring his family back, and then eventually get to a place where the Bloodline is now a babyface group, and that's right. Now they're going to have a massive run for another year or two. And to kind of talking about that weekend at the Talent Hotel all weekend. So Dustin Rhodes was there the whole time, and so I kept hoping that meant that like Dustin's going to show up on the show, like right. And that's where, like, there's also this rumor, which clearly didn't come to fruition. Another big rumor that I just kept hearing and was swirling was that Christian was going to be on the show, because who knows, maybe his AEW deal is up. That also didn't happen. But the idea of, like, seeing Dustin there, I was like, well, that kind of seals it that Cody's winning, right? And it would have been so great if they'd been able to work out a deal where, and this is where my head even was when the Usos run in and then Solo runs in, and I'm like, yeah, but wait, Dustin's gonna come in and he's gonna even things out, and then that doesn't happen. And I don't know if it didn't happen because WWE just wasn't interested. I hope it wasn't that AEW prevented it, because I think that even if he's still under an AEW deal and were to do a thing like that, I think it's just such a massive moment that, like, if I'm Tony Khan, I let that happen. Like, and then I put Dustin on my show the next week. I don't care if they plug Dynamite or not. Like, that's such a huge moment. So it was deflating then when, like, Cody just lost after one spear.
Like I was listening to an interview that Dustin did coming out of Mania. He said that they wouldn't even, like, he didn't specify who they was, but he said that he couldn't come down from, like, the section that I guess he was watching from the press box, and he said that he couldn't come down from that area, because you saw like Cody had his whole, he had his people right there at ringside. You would think
they were all there.
Yep.
His biological blood brother would be, but would be somewhere in that row. But he said that they wouldn't let him come down. So it'll be interesting to find out who they is. But you good, Chris?
No, and for me, what the night was already ended in kind of horror, with that night food. But then to twist the knife, Cody Rhodes goes for that dumb babyface disease that exists in WWE. Where
I know what you're talking about. When he was looking at Paul Heyman for the cross. Oh my God.
Brock Lesnar's bullshit. Where on Twitter, everybody is like saying, "Oh, Cody is gonna get turned on." And I actually gave it until about 8:45 on the West Coast. What it was, and then when I saw that the match hadn't even happened yet, I was like, oh, okay, this
right.
Now I'm comfortable.
I mean, we knew, Chris. We knew.
Well, I wanted to give him some modicum of the benefit of the doubt, and then that happened. So
we know the people Brock Lesnar tends to like to fight. That's all I'm gonna say.
Right?
Man, stop. Stop. But I'm not. If that joke flew over anybody's head that's in the chat right now, don't.
If you know, you know. That's all I'm gonna say. If you know, you know.
Real quick, my last thing on the Roman Cody thing, right?
Yeah.
The thing was, bro, that match was so good, bro. Like, that was a great.
It was an excellent match.
Like when you think, like, I'd have seen a shit ton of wrestling this year, bro. Like, that was one of my favorites that I've seen. Like, I'm talking about just the big match, the overall atmosphere. You cannot ask for a better environment. You just can't, because, like, even when the moves in the ring don't necessarily, like, it's not anything wowing, but when you got a crowd like that, bro, that only, like, amplifies it. And the finish, it really takes it down to that. And it's crazy that it's like that, though, that the fact that the finish sort of takes it down a notch. And if you go to an alternate world where Cody wins, dude, I promise you, people come December 2023, people looking at that, they probably be like, that's probably in my top 10, top 5. Some people might even be their favorites of the year. But man, it's just like I don't know what they do going forward. But like I would assume that Brock is probably gonna beat Cody at the Backlash. Maybe we all can see Cody winning that. But either way, like I think how we all made the point and we all sort of agreed on that. I don't think they'll be able to recapture what they had at one point.
And the finish of that match too,
right?
You had already banned Solo Sikoa from
Solo,
ringside, and then he comes out and
goes right back.
Like no creativity at all.
Bro, he had dumb baby face syndrome at the point where he had I think he had Roman up for the third crossroads. Bro, he hit the damn move. Like he's sitting there like staring at Paul Heyman on the apron, like, oh my God, what about it? Then, like it just looks stupid because he was sitting there like standing there for like 8 seconds, like looking at Paul Heyman, and then you can, I mean, obviously, you setting up waiting for Solo to come out. You know what I'm saying? But like, it's just like small stuff like that, bro. It's just, I don't know, man. Overall, it is deflating. Yeah. But then should we get into the next topic? Should we get into
yes? Because I was gonna say that might have been a little deflating, but we had big news coming out later that night.
Look at that transition. Like you got my stuff right in front of me, Nate. Look at that.
I'm gonna switch it back over to my main computer, so just talk amongst yourselves.
Okay, speaking of transitions, Chris switching over to the main computer because he got to get ready for this topic because this is gonna be a big one that I'm definitely eager to hear Brian's thoughts on.
I say we should actually start it off with Brian, man. So the day after WrestleMania, the morning after WrestleMania, I should say, got the news that WWE was acquired by Endeavor. There's going to be a merger with UFC to form a new sports entertainment company, man. It's pretty big news. Brian, I was just start off with you. What did you think about the news when you first saw it? And also, I don't know if you had the opportunity to see the interview that Vince McMahon did with Endeavor CEO Ari Emanuel. And Vince did get asked about the sexual misconduct allegations, and it like from what I saw, I don't know if you felt the same, Brian, but it felt like there were points when Vince seemed like he started. I don't want to use the word irritated, but it seemed like there were points where, but when he was asked about some of those questions, he chalked it up to mistakes. It would seem like Ari would like jump in and like sort of cover or fill in or just add more to basically say a whole lot without saying nothing to deflect from the question. I just want to know what you thought about everything that comes in that.
Yeah, so I definitely saw photos of that interview. So WrestleMania weekend, again, just kind of being around and the buzz and who you would see like at the hotel and on the floor and stuff. My feeling was this deal is getting done this weekend. Like this is when you do the deal. This is the hottest that WWE is going to look. This is why you do the show in LA. It isn't that like, I didn't know if the deal would necessarily be announced, but my feeling was the deal will be done this weekend. And as we kind of know the particulars, the deal's not really going to go into effect and be sealed. They're hoping by the end of the year. So essentially they're just announcing that they have a provisional agreement, but it still needs to be approved and all of this stuff. I mean, I kind of thought Endeavor was who made the most sense for a while. I know people kind of would say NBC Universal, but the way that the media landscape is right now, if I had to guess, I think NBC is trying to find someone to buy them, and spending $9 billion on WWE doesn't necessarily make their price go up by $9 billion. So, correct. And then also Disney was another name I kind of heard out there. And Disney, I think, is also trying to get sold as well. So I don't think any of the traditional media companies were probably going to be the ones to buy it. Endeavor made a lot of sense because of the UFC thing. They clearly see the long-term value in the media rights. So it makes sense. I mean, what this means in the long term, who knows? I mean, I'm not going to lie. There was a small part of me that was like, well, if we're now merging with UFC, we have now expanded the number of people that can lose to Roman Reigns quite a bit. Why drop the belt to Cody Rhodes when you can do a match against Conor McGregor in a year? Like, that's where my head goes. Right. Like, they are now so many people. We can now, we can do John Jones and Roman Reigns. There's things that we can do. We can have, like, Brock go back into UFC. There's a lot of different ways that this thing can go. And why not cash in a couple huge big money matches with Roman? now in terms of Vince and the sexual like misconduct and how it was discussed, for the longest time, there's always this feeling when we would complain about like WWE is so bad. Why does Vince not retire? Why doesn't the market realize this? And there's always this kind of prevailing thought that like, oh well, Wall Street thinks that no one can do it except for Vince. I think where right now is that they just don't care. The market, they don't care about the quality of the product. They're not watching the product. Maybe they'll go to WrestleMania every once in a while. Like they'll go to the big show and be like, oh yeah, this is like going to the circus. They don't care. They don't care if Vince is running it. They don't care if Triple H is running it. All they care about is the money that's coming in. And even though like Triple H's time period has been positive, and there are a lot of indications that it is his creative that has caused that, you could also just as easily say, well, the more we get out of, lockdowns and the more we get out of the pandemic, the more that people are going to go out to live events. So that's also what you could say. So who knows? Either way. I mean, I do think Vince selling the company was part of his play to come back.
100%.
Yeah.
Like that's,
100%.
And I think Ari was fine with it. And also like, I mean, the last thing I'll kind of say in terms of who was around, I mean, Ari was like in the front row on night one. So once you saw that, you're kind of like, okay, well, we know what the deal is.
Yeah.
But because from the interview part that he did with Vince, he was like, he really stressed that he didn't want to do this without Vince. And I was like, I mean, and like even to touch like the touch on the like we do, I would say like probably for the last like I don't even know, bro, but like 6-7 months now on this podcast, we've been talking about like these different allegations that have surfaced against Vince McMahon and how like it pretty much of like nothing has been done as far as like repercussions or anything of the sort. Like kind of just skated by, got his way back in, as executive director of the board, and now he like pretty much secured himself. A pretty nice spot in terms of like I think like even before the sale, the news had dropped that the WWE had issued a press release about it, actually about his contract, like the contract that he has established, and like essentially if anything were to happen to WWE, Vince is gonna get a nice ass payout, and like he's gonna be straight regardless, like regardless of anything that happens going forward. So I'm like I actually wanted to like ask Chris before you dropped out, like I asked Brian as well. Chris, what did you think about the interview that Ari Emanuel and Vince McMahon did, if you can recall, what they sort of the ins and outs of what they discussed, if you remember?
Oh yeah, I remember a chunk of it. I mean, I thought it was Vince McMahon is always going to be able to hide in plain sight. Let me just get that out the way, because of the way the general population conceives what wrestling is. It's a circus, and anything, even when serious stuff happens in wrestling, like a woman sues this guy for harassment or whatever, it's going to be different than the NFL or Hollywood or anything like that. This is going to always fall back to, this is stupid pro wrestling, so it is what it is. Vince McMahon, he gave the Donald Trump line, I'm paraphrasing, but the "I alone can fix it" stuff when he's talking about WWE and how they're gonna sell, go for a sell or whatever. Like he's got to be the one at the helm for that, and I think with wrestling fans and media, we just kind of have to understand that this is just what WWE is. They have no incentive to like do right by anyone outside of their charitable things that they do. I mean, the company does do some good things, but they do a lot of bad things. They sweep things under the road, which the culture of that has kind of changed a little bit. But this is just what it is. I don't know how long Vince McMahon is going to last. in his position that he's in, because now his vote, if I understand it correctly, at least from what Thurston was telling me, his voting power is that of everybody else's, right? Once this thing is finalized. So, I mean, and also when you sell a company, corporate America, because I've been a part of a lot of these situations, you could be the boss for a long time and you are taken out of power. It just is what it is. You know, you are now adhere to everybody else and what everybody else wants and stuff like that. I mean, that happened with Ted Turner, right? When Ted Turner got rid of when he sold Time Warner to when he did the AOL Time Warner merger.
Right.
He didn't have the power that he used to have. That happened with John Schnatter from Papa John's. He didn't have the power that he used to have once, you know, things, you know, the ownership kind of changed and they became publicly traded. And I think that Vince McMahon is a little bit different because the company, he's kind of been the face of wrestling. He's kind of been the jester, the ringmaster for a long period of time. So, you know, he might not, you know, reach that same faith, but I do think that, I do think that I don't think this is gonna, I would not be surprised if Vince McMahon is not in power in like a year. It wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if he is in power in a year, but I'm just saying from my own personal experiences with these kind of mergers and things that I've seen with my own eyes, you know, it's a brave new world we live in.
I hear what you're saying, Chris, but to that I would say he could very well be gone in a year, but I would say two things lead me to believe that he will still be here. A, he has a pre-existing relationship with Ari, right? But then B, like, let's look at the dude on the other side of the table, Dana White. Like, we ain't talking about choir boys here, right? Yeah. Like, so I feel like they're level to put up with the fuckery, to use a preferred Kris Ealy term. Like they got a high threshold for that.
Dana White is not the same kind of asshole as Vince McMahon.
He's a different
he's a different brand of asshole. Dana White, when he got caught on tape smacking his wife twice, he's an asshole for doing that, and he probably should have been fired immediately, but he didn't try to like spin it like I'm the good guy in this situation, right? He came out and basically said, yo, there's never an excuse for hitting a woman. And in Los Angeles, in California, in a situation like that, if you're caught on tape hitting a man and then the man hits you back, they won't treat that the same, because the law is nobody should hit anybody. I'm not condoning what Dana White did, but I'm working in the courts for as long as I have. I know plenty of situations like this where they arrest both people or arrest no one. So that's what I'm saying about that. I don't ever see Vince McMahon humbling himself to this level for something like that. I could still see him trying to spin it. I was surprised when he apologized to CM Punk for, you know, giving him his walking papers on his wedding day, and that was even more just I don't think that was a real actual apology. It was just for, we didn't know it was your wedding day. We're not apologizing for firing your ass, but you know, but
like, Vince, you got the invitation on your desk, brother.
Yeah,
you know about that.
Yeah. So, but it is what it is. I think Dana White, and I don't like Dana White. I don't want it to even sound a little bit like I like that guy, but I think he could play well with others better than Vince McMahon.
Real quick, about Dana. because this is something I've been thinking about since this news came out, because I do feel like, yes, this is a huge deal for the WWE, but I feel like, Brian, looking at this from the other side of the coin, for the MMA side of things, one of the constant talking points that has been brought up for at least a good 5 or 6 years in that sport is fighter pay. Do you feel like this sale, does that get us any closer to fighters being maybe treated a little bit better, or is it going to be business as usual?
No, I mean, it's
yeah, I was about to say.
I mean, the tough thing is, like, I think there's a better, like, I think there's always been a higher likelihood of that happening in pro wrestling than in MMA. The problem is with individual, especially combat sports, it's so tough to convince the guys that, like, we got to go into this together. Whereas in pro wrestling, the thing that's so tough with pro wrestling is it would require the top guys to also go along with it. And the top guys generally don't want to go along with it. But there is, I think, more of a mentality of the rest of the roster. If you're not Roman Reigns and maybe Cody, Brock, pretty much anyone else, you are interchangeable. Yeah. And so they need to kind of come together and say, okay, there's got to be, when you make these, landmark TV deals, or when you sell the company, we have to get a chunk of that. It isn't just you pay us whatever you feel that, like, we're worth, or, oh, you're going to stop doing pay-per-views and take away a large part of our, our revenue without giving us answers about how that's replaced. I will say, going back real quick to the Dana conversation, what I think is I think still kind of benefits from this mystique that Vince did for a long time of no one else can do this. And we've seen it in wrestling. I mean, part of the reason why Vince is thought of as the greatest promoter of all time is because he did it for so long. Right. I mean, look at WCW and how many, the revolving door. I mean, Eric Bischoff kind of had the longest tenure, and that wasn't necessarily like, all rosy. I mean, we can talk about the Jim Herds and all these people. Yeah. And so I think with UFC, there's this feeling of, okay, if not Dana, then who? Whereas in WWE, Paul Levesque has shown he can do it. So if we're 6 months, a year down the road, and Vince is proving himself to be erratic, and that, okay, he's tough to rely on, and he's constantly changing creative plans, which I don't think people really care about. I don't think an Ari Emanuel cares, just the show makes sense. But if your creative is erratic, it makes it tougher for you to have licensing deals. It makes it tougher to do. It definitely makes it tougher to do anything with outside celebrities, because there's not an agreed upon, okay, here's what's going to happen. It just makes business tougher when you have this erratic 76-year-old guy who's going to throw the script away right before the show. Dana White is not going to show up to the building the day of a UFC and change the card. If Vince does that and he keeps making it tougher to do long-term business, he does have someone who has proven that he can do the job. Whereas with Dana, it's okay, if Dana's not in this position, then who is? And I think that really does help Dana, because he has this aura around him of who else can make these cards, who else can keep the guys in line, who else is going to be in that spot. Right. And that's really what keeps him there, is that aura.
Yeah, and I think, like, people got to understand too, when you're trying to change the culture of a company, that is not an easy fix. You're not going to just go from being signing a lopsided WWE contract and being like, okay, now I'm awake, and now I finally see things need to be different, and everybody needs to be treated fairly and whatever. Because what happens is, I remember talking to my students one year about when you go to a rental car place, you have to be 25 to rent a car. And when you're young, you complain about that, and you're like, yeah, this sucks, man. The law should change, and it's age discrimination, and it's this and that. And that is true. But then what happens is you turn 25 and you're like, yeah, I don't give a fuck about this anymore, because it's just how things are. And I think what happens with John Cena, The Rock, people like that who've already reached like these ridiculous heights in WWE, it's like maybe at one point they were like, yeah, we should probably get together and unionize, but it's like, okay, now I'm making 10, 15, 20 million dollars a movie. Yeah, you wrestler cats need to figure this shit out on your own. Get like me and become a movie star or whatever. Join SAG or something, or the Writers Guild or whatever, because I'm good over here, you know. And I think that's just the nature of business, right? That's just right. When you're talking about culture, that takes somebody who just becomes a big star, and in the middle of their stardom, they make a change. Because Vanessa Lane Bryant, the judge, when all those wrestlers were coming at that clash action lawsuit, it wasn't like she said there was no merit there. She just said, you guys don't wrestle anymore, you know? So why are you complaining about it now when you didn't complain about it for decades after working there, you know? And that's just kind of where the union stuff is at the moment. And that's just where it's going to continue to be until somebody that's like Leslie Smith in UFC, for example. That's one of my homegirls. She tried to unionize when she was still relevant in UFC, and everybody kind of turned on her when she's trying to do a good thing for the sport. And I just see wrestling as the same thing, because as long as your bag is good, right, you probably don't care about anybody else's bag.
Yeah. Brian, real quick, because I know you got limited time and I want to get your thoughts on the Muffin Man here in a second. Yes, do you know the Muffin Man? We're going to talk about him. Kind of, what do you think is going to be the biggest change, either for WWE or UFC, coming out of this sale? Do you feel like it's going to be something involving the TV rights? Is it going to be something involving the performers? What do you think is going to be the most significant effect and the one that we might see the soonest from this sale?
I mean, I think lumping those TV rights is a really big thing. Though at the same time, I really wonder what the whole Peacock situation is. How quickly is WWE able to start shopping that around? I don't think they're ever going to be in a place where they're back on pay-per-view for $50 a month. However, could I see them doing like the ESPN Plus thing, where suddenly, you know, WrestleMania is $10. You have to pay a little extra. And I do think they could get away with that. I really think they could.
I can see that too. Yeah.
But I think the Peacock deal was like 5 years, so it's still 3 years before they could even do that. I also look at, you know, who would even have the pocketbook to do a UFC and WWE kind of lumped together deal. Is ESPN going to want WWE? Is Disney going to be looking to spend that kind of money? If Disney gets purchased by another company, are they going to want? I don't know. Like, I do feel like the more that all of these media companies kind of get you know, sucked up and whatnot, like who are the buyers? There's fewer of them. I know there's like at least word out there that maybe Warner is going to be interested, which isn't great news for AEW, but you know, I think AEW is a much better deal for them. So who knows? Who? That's the big thing for me, is like, who are the clients out there? Who are the people that would buy it? I do think cross promotion will be great. I think the ability to, I mean, one of the things that UFC has done so incredibly well is they have made it seem like this incredibly premium event by not running massive stadiums. Because they run smaller shows and the tickets cost so much. You see all these celebrities and it's the hot thing to be at. WWE, even when they're in LA, doesn't have that. We didn't actually see tons of celebrities.
Too. They're exactly like A-list celebrities too at the UFC events. It's not like that guy from that show. You know, it's like
Frankie Muniz is at WrestleMania.
and maybe there's something where WWE can learn a thing or two from UFC about how do we get that cool factor? How do we make ourselves seem like an exclusive event? Whereas right now it kind of is everyone's welcome, and it doesn't feel like the hot ticket.
Right.
I also think, and we're seeing it. We're transitioning towards this time where WWE is doing more and more stadium shows, and I felt for the longest time that I do think WWE could get to a point where they could do a stadium show every month. They're obviously not as big as the NFL, but the NFL does 2 to 3 stadium shows every week as a touring brand, if we want to look at it that way. UFC isn't that. If anything, and again, I don't know much about sports, as Nate can attest, but it doesn't. I was
gonna say, Brian, if I had known all these years we've done shows together, the way to get you to talk about the NFL was to refer to as a touring brand. We could have been talking about our Falcons.
Exactly. And I do feel like the NFL is kind of WWE. They're the big stadium show. Everyone can come. You know, we build up to the huge show once a year. Whereas maybe UFC is the NBA. It's a little cooler. There's more celebrities there. It feels a little more, not necessarily, it feels like the cooler brand. It feels a little bit more authentic. It's not, it's not icky in the same way.
I'm about to say celebrities definitely not stepping in no stadium with 20-degree weather just to watch some damn football.
Exactly.
Basketball the way it goes. But more on Brian's point that he mentioned about the pay-per-view model, there's a part of me that is slightly interested in what WWE's sort of there. Like, I think you'll get a good look at the sort of the core audience of what modern day WWE is if they were to revert back to that sort of pay-per-view model, and to see how many people will actually come out of pocket to pay $50 or $60 or $70 to watch a pay-per-view like a Backlash or you know, a Hell in a Cell or anything of the sort. Because especially when you have in over the previous years when Vince McMahon was running the creative and shit, he might probably still is involved to this day, as far as, you know, they come out and say that Triple H is, you know, running that, but I think Vince got his little fingers in there somewhere. But even just going back in the past years, I truly wonder if they were to do something like that and they were to go back to their previous pay-per-view model, how many people will actually tune in, considering the sort of state of the booking. Would people still be that interested to come out and pay? Hey, let me pay this $50, $60 for pay per view when the match when half the match card getting announced a week before or the 3 days before. You know what I'm saying? I think that would just be a real good look from an analytic standpoint of what WWE's core audience is, and also sort of compare that to AEW, how they sort of come out of pocket for the cycles that they had pay per view wise.
That's a good point, Andrew, because it's with I lost my train of thought, but I think that with the paying model, paying for pay-per-views and stuff like that, you could get away with having Cody Rhodes lose for no reason at WrestleMania, with the justification being that, okay, we just pay a monthly fee on Peacock.
Paying $10 for that.
Yeah, if you're paying $65, $70 for a pay-per-view, and then Cody Rhodes, that same shit happens, there'll be a lot of. I don't think that model will last that much longer if you're doing crap like that on a regular basis, you know.
Plus, you've trained your audience to accept a certain price point. So I think, you could go the model where we've got, maybe $10-15 a month, and then, it's $10 extra for WrestleMania. I think that's something that the audience could go for. But if we're talking $50 a pop, 12, 14 times a year, it ain't gonna happen.
I will say, I think there's a positive, and this is a thing with UFC, is that because they still do that for the big fights, there is this pressure to create those large stars and to be able to do those multiple cards a couple times a year. WWE, not so much. I mean, honestly, part of why where we're at with Roman and why he is such an attraction is they told you that no one else in this company matters except for this one guy. They had him beat everybody, which made for really boring TV for a couple of years. But now we have a very interesting character. But we had very boring TV for many, many years. UFC, it isn't necessarily the same thing. UFC wouldn't, they're not going to be in the position where they're going to pull their punches because, well, we don't want this run to end quite yet. They're going to give you the interesting, like the twists and turns and all of that stuff. But WWE, unfortunately, isn't necessarily going to give you because it does feel like sometimes they play it safe because they let the pocketbooks lead the way.
But see, and on that point, like, to see the thing with the UFC is like when it comes to sort of building up that next crop, it's very. I think on that standpoint, it's not easy. I'm not gonna say it's easy, but like when you have people that are so charismatic, and they like whether that be in the like whatever division they are, I think it's real easy to sort of uplift those people and like sort of, especially if they have that sort of charisma.
They've learned from wrestling and done it better.
I could have said it no better right there. They've learned from wrestling and done it better. But see, I think with specifically what we talking about with WWE, I think that they get real comfortable in the sense of, hey, this person has been a star here, so we need to keep riding with them and keep riding the wave until we can't ride it no more. And then when you do that, you sort of bypass and forget about the other people that you could make a star. But see, the thing is about like simply just speaking about WWE, I think that they always have this thing where they're afraid to sort of take one person to the next stratosphere because there's that uncertainty. And I've always been like, especially with my pro wrestling and how I like watching wrestling, I've always thought of it like this. If you want to find out if somebody's a top girl or a top guy or a top player in your company, the only way you will find out is if you give them a chance. That's the only way you're gonna find out. You're not gonna find out by speculating. You're not gonna find out by guessing. The only way you're gonna find out is if you're ready. Like I even look at it like what NJPW just did with Sonata. They just put this dude that lost to Okada like 7 times, dog. Like 7 world title matches he lost. And the topic has always been, could Sonata be the world champion? Could he sort of carry that same prestige that a world champion would have? And the only way you're going to find out is if you put the world title on him. So guess what they did? They put the world title on him, and we're going to find out. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's that simple. But I think that WWE sometimes, like when you got like shareholders and you got these different contracts and television rights, I think that all that can sort of get jumbled in together, and it sort of prevents you from figuring out who could be next on the rise underneath your top guy or top girl.
Yeah, I mean,
no, go ahead, because I have a question for you.
Yeah, I was going to say real quick. I mean, if you look at in UFC, if they were the ones, if the money men can make all the shots, Ronda Rousey would still be the UFC Women's Champion. Like if you could just sort of like, if the money people could sort of say like, what makes the most sense business wise, that's not always the most interesting story. Which is why in sports, narratives form. And there is more of a like meritocracy of, sometimes there's upsets, and it's like earlier today I went and I saw Air, but that's just to use as examples, like Michael Jordan comes into the NBA and completely blows the thing up, and the league becomes this massive, huge thing. However, if the money people kind of have their thing, they might be like, I don't know, Magic Johnson and Larry Bird still make us a lot of money. So like, let's not put all the chips on this young guy just yet. And that's the tough thing with pro wrestling, because it is this weird middle kind of thing. It is scripted, but it is also sports. And that's why you have to, as a promoter, you really have to have your finger on the pulse, and you really have to listen to your audience. And that's, to kind of full circle. That's why Cody, like, you had to capitalize on that moment. You had to take the audience there. Instead, you're kind of taking the audience in like an unsatisfying direction that they didn't really want to go.
Destination Philadelphia.
Exactly.
So I was gonna ask you, because I've been wanting to ask you this for a while. I'm not a big fan of the way WWE, because they have this motto now where they want to make sure the wrestlers never become bigger than the brand, right? Of WWE. I don't think that that's entirely that smart. I think that the way the company should work, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think that you need people to become bigger than the company and then transition out and have somebody else that's ready to become bigger than the company, so you could keep that pipeline going. Because I think they the way the model works right now is they want to keep everybody and just establish that, look, you are never going to be bigger than WWE, no matter what. And that's just the way the story goes. But I think like when you become The Rock, when you become, and I don't think there's a way to prevent that anyway, you know, because it's like John Cena. I don't think John Cena's name was ever bigger than WWE's, but he still left and got the hell out of there when it was time for him to do that, you know?
Well, yeah, I think it's toofold. I think it's Vince wanting to limit the leverage that his talent has. I also think that he has the way that he's traditionally run the business, I think is also, it's this, you know, we're on the road, you know, 24/7, 365, you know, we're doing shows every single week, which I think also hurts the specialness of your talent and also their ability to branch out from this, you know, very self-contained world that you have. But Vince also, like, he is so self-consumed that he sees his world and his universe as the only thing that exists. And I think an interesting comparison to Vince, probably the closest person in show business in terms of like the status they have would be like Lorne Michaels. Lorne Michaels doesn't think that he is the last place that the cast of SNL will work. For him, a success is if I now make this person a movie star. If they then go out and they then get more powerful, and that helps my power and my influence, and now I also have a big movie star that can come back and do this show. That's in a dream world. That's what he wants. He wants everyone who's on that show to eventually become so massive they can leave and become, you know, much bigger stars outside of it. He knows that it doesn't last forever. Like, yeah, you have a couple Keenans and things like that last for a long time, but eventually, ideally, you have Will Ferrell or you have Jimmy Fallon who go off and do much larger things. Vince has never had a peaceful separation with any of his top guys. It always ends in a fraught way. He gets pissed that you like want to leave, even if it's just that like they know that their time's coming due and they need to figure out what the next thing is. But he always ends on negative terms. He like never just lets the guy like ride off into the sunset. It's always negative. And I think that really shows part of like who he is. It isn't, you know, hey, John, we're going to be phasing you out. And we would love for you to transition into movies. And here's what the couple-year plan looks like. And here's what you'll come back and we're going to make you the Babe Ruth. John Cena, his booking over the last couple of years feels like, well, we got him for a couple of days. Who's he going to put over? And that's not great. I mean, I still want the Hollywood John Cena run. I still want the heel run. I want him cutting promos from movie set. I want him with the belt on the red carpets. I want him to do that. And I think that actually is one of the few hands that WWE still has to play. That could be like a massive head-turning thing. Again, fantasy booker hat. I want to see John Cena goes for the title. Maybe it's against Cody. Maybe it's against Roman. But the idea is I'm putting my career on the line. I either retire and Ric Flair retains his record of the most world titles, or I beat him and I'm the greatest of all time. But if I can't be the greatest of all time, there's no reason for me to show up. I keep showing up and losing, so career's over.
Yeah,
and the guy cheats to win the match. you know, and then he's like, he's Hollywood John Cena. I'm the greatest of all time. And by the way, you can't see me because I'm not going to show up at TV. If you want to see me, buy a ticket to one of my movies. That's what we want.
Watch Peacemaker on Max.
Exactly. That's what we want. And I actually think him doing that at like a SummerSlam or something, and then Cody beats that John Cena, I think actually at this point would be better than beating Roman. But that's just kind of where my head's at.
No, I agree with you too. And I shouldn't be laughing so hard at what you said, but I never noticed that there's never a peaceful ride off into the sunset with these top guys. Because
that's going to lead us to our next topic.
Like they buried The Rock before WrestleMania in LA. What was it, 21? I think it was. So yeah, I think that's just the nature of that beast, man. Yeah.
Well, again, speaking of fraught partings, because I know Brian's got limited time. This man is a busy man, so we got to get one last topic in for Brian before we say goodnight.
You make it seem like we're about to have a fraught party. Don't like that segue at all.
I'm gonna super kick you through the satellite window, brother. We got to bring up the Muffin Man. Andrew Thompson.
Yes,
man. That when Brian was talking about, look, I appreciate John Cena for his years of work. I do not want to see this man hold the world titles. I'm all the way good on John Cena's sixth. John Cena, look, stay where you at, brother. Stay where you at. Especially after that last performance, bro. I am good. I'm good. Yeah. I'm good. Hey,
I want the matches to be terrible. I want the Hollywood Hulk Hogan run.
Yeah.
Hey, real quick. I just wanted to bring this up because I mess with Chris a lot on the show, but I gotta give him his credit on this one. He said that match with Austin Theory was going to do absolutely nothing for this man. Lo and behold, here we are.
Hell, Cena said it to his face.
But you want to know what, bro? Like that promo that he did, that did way more damage than it did any good. Because he bro, like there's a difference when you're playing into the overall storyline and you're sort of taking those jabs that blends the reality and the storyline aspect. But when you just like flat out speaking what everybody's think, that does nobody good. Like you're literally telling this dude that, man, if you win this match, nobody cares.
Nope.
And here we are now. Nobody cares. I don't like, you know what I'm saying? Like he was like, oh, well, okay, you come out and you beat me at WrestleMania. Then what do you do after that? And Austin Theory has no direction. This dude is caught up in the middle. His next title defense is at Backlash, and he is in the middle of a program between two dudes who are feuding with each other. Austin Theory is not even the main focus. He's just in the middle of it. He's not the focus. He just so happens to have the title, and that's why he's on the card.
He's an incidental participant.
He's an incidental participant, and I just had to get Chris credit on that because I mess with him a lot, but like he was spot on that.
Was how many people actually thought John Cena was joking when he cut that promo.
He was dead ass. He was dead ass.
That was a heart attack. He like you were,
bro. Cena,
nothing before me, nothing after me, and that's what he meant. I could look in a motherfucker's eyes and tell.
But they serious.
Yeah.
But the thing about that is though, it's like you can kind of tell. Like I said, weeks after that he was serious just by. I'm back.
You back, Andrew?
Oh, I'm back. Oh yeah. Then Nate had muted me. I saw that. Nate said the host muted you. I saw that. Nate.
You know. Look, John Cena ain't putting over the young talent. Neither am my nephew.
but like you could just tell that that like he was being serious just by the fact that this dude showed up for that 1 week. And that was the build. That was it. He did not come. He was gone after that, and then you didn't see him until WrestleMania. And like I'm just, like when I look at Austin Theory now, but like he is like completely directionless as far as like they sort of slide him in these positions where it's just like, okay, we need you to wrestle somebody, and then but you're going to be the foil for somebody else's story. Like even with Ray, it was used to enhance the thing between him and Dominic. With Bobby Lashley, it was used to enhance the thing with him and Bronson Reed. He's becoming that guy where you just like you slot him in to enhance somebody else, and it just so happens that he's the champion right now, so you got to put him in something important. So that's just what it feels like right now. But like I know Nate had. You go ahead, Brian.
Oh yeah, sorry. People compare him like to Cena, and I don't. Cena's not the comparison with Theory. It's Randy Orton. He's very much Randy Orton pre-evolution. He's very much like. He's got some of the tools, but he has no personality. And who knows? Maybe when Randy comes back, let's put those two together. Maybe like there could be something interesting there. My hope. I wanted Cena to win that match, bring back the Open Challenge, and then lose to Montez Ford on Monday night. That would have been to me. That would have been the best sort of like use of John Cena.
Brand, man.
Meanwhile,
talk to him, Brand, man. Talk to him, Brand, man.
The thing they did that I loved was Cena pretty much said, listen, I'll come back and lose Austin Theory, but are you sure that's such a good idea? And then he like, it was like, just so you know, next time you call me to do favors, it's not going to work out.
hey, Brian, real quick on your point. This is the crazy thing. I remember when Cena, do y'all remember that interview Cena did with the Associated Press when he was talking about Vince misconduct allegations and all that? In that same interview, he got asked about the match with Austin Theory. Like he got asked about the potential of the match with Austin Theory, and and Cena was like, "Well, I didn't ask for that, but they called me and told he wasn't he was being dead ass serious. He was like, I didn't ask for that, I didn't want that. Like they called me and said, hey, you're free. Can you come in and do this? And he was like, okay. And like, you know what I'm saying? Like when you are in the media and the caliber of Cena and you're saying stuff like that, I didn't want to work with this dude. Like they just told me I was working.
Like when the boss call you in on your day off.
You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, bro, you want to come in and work this 6-hour shift real quick, bro? Like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like whatever. Like
I'll throw out there, and this is, I know we keep wanting to get to the big elephant in the room, but my theory has been that WWE kept this year's WrestleMania very lean in terms of costs because of this sale. They wanted the leanest, they want to be able to say, look how large of a profit it was. I mean, I just kind of know from, sort of behind the scenes stuff, they did not fly a lot of their employees to LA. They kept it very small, the number of people they actually brought into town. Okay. I think that's why we did not see The Rock and Stone Cold on this show. I think they wanted to keep the price tag very lean. Listen, maybe we get The Rock next year, now that the sale has been done. The dream match I wanted, that I really hope they would have been able to sign, was Cena and Austin. I don't think it'd be the prettiest match in the ring, but the idea is this is a match to determine the greatest of all time. And even when they were building up the Austin Theory match, I thought Cena was going to come out and say, listen, I want to face Austin, but not you. And he calls out Stone Cold. And if you remember, like, Stone Cold was posting on Instagram every day. He was posting the workouts and everything. It felt like, and then the leak comes out where it's like, listen, they offered him money to face Roman Reigns. And it's like, it feels like so much was building to Austin and Rock both being on the show, and then neither of them are, not even in cameo roles. When they're in LA, where both guys live, that to me just sort of screamed of like, we're keeping things a little thin this year. Our cameos are Pat McAfee and Shane McMahon's one hammer.
That was tough. That was tough.
hey, bro, real quick on the Shane thing. That got to be probably the most embarrassing moment for like a human being to have. Like you come back, big pop, and then dude, you like, you know what I'm saying? Like that's an
embarrassing moment for an embarrassing man. Like that's the other thing.
Damn.
Speaking of
embarrassing, we finally here. We finally here.
I set you up. Yeah.
Look at that man. That man Brian Mann, a professional. Look at him. I'm telling you. Look. So I want to start this off right with a quote from Kris Ealy from last month's NWA podcast, and I quote. This is from Chris. Whenever we talk about Vince McMahon or CM Punk on this podcast, the viewer numbers go up. These two are always in the news, CM Punk and Vince McMahon, but here we are.
Controversy creates cash.
Controversy creates cash, and controversy brings the views to the NWA podcast. So keep doing stuff, please, fellas. Please keep doing stuff. So like here we go, man. We're gonna start off with CM Punk's coming back to AEW. That's what all signs are pointing to. April 21st, it was noted in the Wrestling Observer newsletter that as of present day, as of that writing, CM Punk's return to AEW is scheduled for June 17th at the United Center in his hometown of Chicago, Illinois. Now, the thing is, June 17th is not a Wednesday. It's not a Friday. June 17th is a Saturday. And that is the expectation of that'll be the debut of AEW's new Saturday show, which the rumored name is Collision. It's not confirmed or anything, but that's the all signs are pointing to, that being the debut of AEW's new show, and CM Punk is going to be the one to So to be I'm assuming like the poster boy of that show. With that, I just wanted to ask, like, I'm gonna start off with you, Nate. I wanted to ask you, like, so with Punk coming back, him starting off this new show, like you sort of, I think you had said it before in this podcast that you never thought that Tony Khan was just gonna let Punk like just ride out his deal and just gonna, just let him go. Like, he was gonna get some use out of this dude. It wasn't no way it was gonna turn out that he was just gonna let him, just let him go. But like, if it is gonna be the route of Punk is gonna be the the sort of the fixture on this show, and those who are fond of CM Punk or don't have an issue working with CM Punk are going to be on this show. Like, how do you sort of navigate that as a whole in terms of a locker room? And then when it comes time for these pay-per-views, when everybody's going to be under the same roof, people going to see each other. You know what I'm saying? They're going to cross paths, and that's going to be what it is. But firstly, what do you think about the sort of the the anticipation of a second CM Punk return. And you know, when you think about him being the sort of face of this Saturday show, and you know, Punk being back in the mix overall.
Andrew, like you alluded to, man, this is something that I always thought was probably the most likely outcome, because it's like, dog, like, this is business at the end of the day. You know, I understand you got interpersonal relationships at the job, and don't everybody, you know, get on the same page at the same time. But at the end of the day, this is an investment Tony Khan made in bringing CM Punk to this company. And so it's like, yeah, dog, if I'm paying you and you feel like coming on back, let's get it. Because Punk, for whatever you want to say about his personality issues or his choice of breakfast pastries, Brian Mann, like, this is a brother that moves the needle, and AEW needs people like that. And, you know, we saw, you know, talking about kind of launching a new show, what he meant to Rampage when he first made his debut in AEW. And so it wouldn't shock me if this was all to bring him back to launch Collision, which I'm kind of lukewarm on the name, but, you know, let's go with it, Tony. I feel like when you talk about, you know, kind of the bigger point of how do they all get along, you know, in this situation, it comes down to, like, you've got to be professionals. You know, we've talked about the backstage stuff with, you know, that had happened at the pay-per-view multiple times on this program. And again, I will continue to allude that if that man, Cody Devante Rhodes, was in the room, I don't think it would have went down that way, Brian, because I feel like Cody has a bit more gravitas and maybe maturity than some of those other cats that was involved in the situation. But be that as it may, I feel like this is a good thing for AEW. When, you know, if Punk comes back or when Punk comes back, because as a viewer and as somebody that covers this, Brian, I hate to say it, because it's kind of like, you know, when you look at, you know, an athlete and, you know, maybe what they're going through with, you know, behind the scenes with their front office or something. It's like, dog, at the end of the day, we're all human beings and we all have issues at the workplace, but I'm here to watch you perform. I'm here to watch you do your thing, do what you do best. And so if I'm Tony Khan, of course, I want Phil Brooks back on my television, because that means more eyeballs are going to be watching this Collision show, particularly now when you're in a space, and you talked about it earlier, Brian, where the media landscape is constantly shifting underneath these companies' feet. So yeah, it makes all the sense in the world to me. I think you get the deal done, you bring them back, and figure everything else out later. Let's just get it done. Let's bring them back. Let's get these eyeballs, get these ratings, and launch this Collision show.
Yeah, I mean, I think Cody was holding this thing, you know, together in a lot of different ways.
Talk to him, Brian Mann.
No, because
say it louder.
Man, Brian, you giving Nate more reasons to flex this shirt, man. You giving Nate more reasons to flex this shirt, man.
Like, Cody is so media savvy. Like, even when he was in AEW, he was on like 45 different shows outside of AEW. So I thought, like, I do agree with you on that. Sorry about that for that interjection.
No, it's all good. I mean, I think Cody, he's even said in interviews that, you know, part of, you know, what he saw coming was that there was going to be this clash between Punk and his people and the elite, the people who formed the company. So Cody kind of saw that coming. And I think that definitely played into his decision to go. I think Cody was also, I think, a lot more involved in the formatting and writing of the show than I think was given credit. And I also think that, so there's this great quote from Scott Hall, which is, the art of pro wrestling is not coming up with a move. The art of pro wrestling is convincing someone to take the move. And Cody, I think, was much better at getting the boys to go along with the story. And we clearly, I think the issues that he saw coming up were, and we saw it with Hangman Page, was we got this guy Hangman Page, who's the champion, and this is the culmination of a story that these guys have been telling for 5 years before this company was even a thought. And now after the end of this 5 years, well, now we also have this guy coming in who is the biggest free agent and the biggest return. And okay, which way are we going to go? It's like we only have so much time to make money off CM Punk, but also we have this other guy. Are we going to put all of our eggs in the basket of making this brand new guy? Or are we going to put our eggs in the basket of we got to capitalize on this massive return? Mm-hmm. And there was a fight, and we clearly never really got a satisfying, the Hangman Page, title reign was not great. And CM Punk never successfully defended the title once. So it was a real tough back and forth. I will say, this is the first I've heard of the name Collision, not a good name. But the big thing, man, Warner must hate Ring of Honor. I don't know what Kerry Silliman did at some point for them to say like, no, you do that thing over there. We'd much rather, you're already overextended brand. We want another show. Yeah. If they're doing this, I hope they're getting rid of Rampage because they already are over leveraged and overtaxed, and the viewership, even if it is a Saturday night show in prime time, I don't think is going to be great. Maybe if you watch it on Sunday.
Brian. The bromance might be disintegrating here, because here's the thing, Brian. I understand. It's like Rampage is the Thunder of the AEW television lineup, but what's better than one Thunder, Brian? Two Thunders, man.
This is true. This is true.
Hey, but look, on just on that, I'm curious to see, like, okay, CM Punk comes back on that June 17th show, like it's gonna do numbers. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's CM Punk. Everybody want to see Punk back, but I just want to say, like, real quick, the United Center for that 6/17 show, that's booked. Like, that's happening regardless. So like it's all but pretty much confirmed that dude's probably going to be there. And like I actually want to ask you, Chris, like when you look at it from like a booking standpoint, do you think it's best to go the route of like doing what they did last time and just keeping it the worst kept secret and like basically all but say that CM Punk's coming back, or do you think it would be smart to announce this new show like at maybe like at the Warner Media upfronts or something like that, and then say within that CM Punk's gonna be at this show as well, and you just package all that together to further promote this show?
Right. I think them doing it like keeping it the worst kept secret is fine as well. I am gonna be a little bit of a voice of dissent on Brian's point. Not that I completely disagree with it, but I think that show is gonna do okay, because I'm speaking as a wrestling fan. Wrestling fans ain't doing shit on Saturday night. Maybe they are. But
damn, just gonna broad brush everybody here, Chris.
I mean, we doing a podcast on Saturday night. So.
Yeah, point taking. Touche, my brother, touche.
I'm just saying that. But here's the thing. For the first time in a while, I had to firmly take a side on this CM Punk Elite controversy, this clashing between the two sides. And I gotta say, I'm finding myself more on CM Punk's side than I am on the Elite side. And I'll tell you why. Because if the rumors are true, where they refuse to work with CM Punk, and they don't like CM Punk because of the shit he said at that pay-per-view or whatever, then they don't need to be EVPs of that company.
Mm-hmm.
You were put in this position because Tony Khan believed that you could be management. I've been management before. There have been people who have worked under me that I wanted to get rid of, but the boss ahead of me has been like, no, this person has got to stay, and you have to figure out a way to work together.
Yep.
The other alternative to that was, okay, well, you could just go back to being a lowly worker, and that's the end of the story. So I hope that this isn't true, that they're saying, oh, we don't want to work with this guy, so we have to do two different brands, because you're a fucking EVP. This is what management is, right? They made a lot of management mistakes in the beginning, because we talked about it ad nauseum on this show, where
Yeah, like I'm about to say, even before Tony Khan like fully took over like the book, and like he had like Cody and Kenny and Matt and Nick, and they was all adding into the pot.
And I wasn't against the the Bucks
and
Omega. And I was never against them being management, but I just you gotta understand, when you're management, that comes with wearing big boy pants.
With great power, there must also come great responsibility.
Yeah, you know, and what I learned when I was doing my PhD program in business psychology is and this is what they drilled home to you, is management is not judged by when things are going well and going great. Management is judged by when shit hits the fan and things are going horrible, and how you handle things going horrible. So the beef that they had, it seems like a big beef because it was a public embarrassment. It was a public admonishment of those guys. CM Punk did a lot of things that were wrong and ill-advised. He was poor shaming, which I'm never a fan of. He said these guys couldn't run a target and all kinds of crap. I'm not a fan of that.
Right.
But in the grand scheme of things,
it's a fucking fight, bro.
Yeah,
They fought, bro.
You should find a way to get over this, you know. Yeah. And if neither side can come to some kind of resolution, then I think that's pretty pathetic, you know. So I'm hoping that the EVPs are not like trying to flex in that kind of way. I mean, they're in a contract year.
Let's see real quick. It is interesting because like I think it was FOW Online that had reported this. I believe it was that there's a meeting that's supposed to be happening involving CM Punk, Tony Khan, Jericho, FTR for whatever reason. And
of course, Jericho's in the mix.
You know Jericho in the mix.
The locker room leader that he may be.
Let me tell you what Chris Jericho is about to solidify himself as the greatest worker. This is what this dude is about to do. He is about like so. First of all, I know y'all remember when after the stuff happened, when those reports came out that Jericho told CM Punk to his face that he was a cancer and that he was going to make sure he never came back. Now, mind you, that was a report. Jericho never addressed this. I'm just curious as to where that came from.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I wonder who could have put that out to the public. You know, I ain't saying no names, Jericho, but you know what I'm saying? Look, but this is what Jericho is going to do. He is going to be the one that I think he'll get the first crack at CM Punk in a long-term feud. Jericho is going to solidify himself as like the peacemaker. Because like already, bro, I think that Jericho has put himself in a position. I think he actually said this in an interview where he like considers himself to be Tony Khan's right-hand man or something or one of his right-hand men. And he's doing that without the EVP position. Jericho is not an EVP, but he is like right there next to Tony Khan. And I'm sure has a significant amount of influence considering how Tony Khan looks at Jericho. And then that was his first big acquisition, big mainstream star in the wrestling space to come into AEW. So I'm looking at it and I'm like, this dude Jericho probably then got his first of the next, like the biggest chapter of his next book or the biggest episode of his next podcast lined up, how I brought Punk back to AEW or whatever shit like that. Like I thought he got all that on the lot. But like on the AEW Collision note, I think that this but if that is the name of the show, I think that it will do a great number for that June 17th show when Punk's come back. But I'm not concerned about it, but like I'm interested to see how that will play out. Like, you know, a month from now, like what would that viewership look like a month from now? Like, are people still going to be that invested? Like, is Punk going to be exclusive to this show? Like, or he's going to be on Dynamite? Like, I mean, if he's going to be exclusive to that Saturday show, then you know it might be. You know, I think it'll be a nice, consistent number because I think that CM Punk will draw that audience. But like, if it's just going to be a thing of where this is just him for this one night and then he's going to be on all 3 slates of programming that week, you know what I'm saying? It's like I'm more so interested in that. But yeah, I think that Jericho's probably going to be the first one to get the crack at, you know, sort of balancing things out or trying to smooth things over along that line. And then on top of that, bro, like when you going into if I'm not mistaken, I think AEW has their media negotiations next year or something like that's coming up next year. You would want somebody like a CM Punk, you know what I'm saying? Like to take it to these men, like we got this big guy and all these ratings. He helped us draw our first $1 million gate. You know what I'm saying? You would want somebody like that
right
to on your team. And then especially you trying to sell out Wembley Stadium in August. like you're gonna need all the firepower you can get for that show. Like I think AEW probably gonna do like a good 50,000. You know what I'm saying? And that's a success to me. I know a lot of people were sort of like, you know, dunking on it a little bit, but that, bro, if you for a 4 or 5 year company to go into a stadium show like that, bro, that's a success. But you're gonna need all the firepower you can get, and a big piece of that firepower is gonna be CM Punk.
Andrew Thompson, the student has become the teacher, because Andrew Thompson hit us with the segue, because you know AEW is gonna need all that firepower, and tonight here on the NWA podcast, we reached out, got some extra firepower from the satellite of hate. Ladies and gentlemen, this brother.
Hey Nate, real quick, Brian. Idea, that idea Brian had about Montez Ford beating Cena the night after WrestleMania, man, bro. Like, but just real quick, like,
this is what Brian Mann does, Andrew Thompson.
Bro, you are literally making a star, and then on top of that, you don't got to spit the street profits to do that. You don't have to do that. You know what I'm saying? You're making somebody, uplifting a young talent who you could see being world champion one day. You know what I'm saying? But hey, let's keep the ball rolling with Austin Theory, huh?
It's time to pull the trigger on Montez Ford. It's time to just,
bro.
Yep.
I think you got to do it. I mean, I haven't necessarily seen him like really impress me in a full one-on-one match yet necessarily, but you guys just got to put him in that spot. And
I'm about to say, Brian, I don't know if you remember, but what did you think about I mean, it was a long time ago, but the one he had against Roman on SmackDown.
That was great. That was great. You know, it was great. I mean, if it's me, it's I think you do a worked injury on Angelo Dawkins, get him out for a period of time. If it works, great. You know, let's then bring Dawkins back and try what we do. If not, okay, bring back Dawkins, put the tag team back together. I also personally think that maybe it's time to think about turning Bianca, just because I think she's done everything she can do as a babyface. Not to say that she's like stale or anying like that. I just really love the idea. They're making
too much money with her though as a babyface.
They ain't messing with that money.
I know. But
Heels can't sell these DoorDash subscriptions, Brian Mann.
Oh, that's true. I think it's time to put Montez and her on TV together. I think that kind of works better as a heel unit, but there's probably a way to make it work as a babyface. I think it's time to give it a shot. I think the two of them would make it work better than Seth and Becky when they tried it. But I think it's time to pull the trigger. Like, Montez is a guy, he's almost in his mid-30s. Like, this isn't he's a star of the future. No,
he's a young up-and-comer in today's WWE, Brian.
Exactly. It's like, this dude is in his 30s. You need to go with it. You need to get him ready. He can't be Finn Balor, who they're finally actually getting behind when he's 42 years old, you know?
Yes. That comment just brought back so many memories of Brian Mann and I want to say 5 or 6 years ago. After shows, Brian Mann just giving me like his fantasy booking on how they should treat Finn Balor, and none of it coming to fruition.
Well, they finally got there. And here's the thing that's so difficult with pro wrestling is people, a lot of times bookers they need to see it before they go with it. And it's important to remember, The Rock wasn't The Rock when he first won the title. If you go back and watch The Rock when he first had the title, he's like The Miz. It took the Mick Foley to get there. I mean, even when you think back to when he became The Rock, he doesn't have the bravado yet. You have to put the person in the spot, and then they kind of grow into it. No one really, you kind of have to go through the experience of doing it. It's even why, Big E, they kind of, was that?
I said,
Dominic.
Yeah.
Exactly. And even Dominic at the very beginning of this heel run, people hated him, but it wasn't until Prison Dom that took a while to get there, and it's like, you kind of got to put people in that spot before they're ready, and then they grow into it. No one's really ready for the spot when they're put into it. It's just like, you're not really there till you're there. Austin's really the only one. And Austin, he was just so experienced by the time that he was there. Most people aren't that. Most people need to be put in the spot, and then they grow into it.
I about to say, Brian, to your point, the last time I remember somebody coming in, bro, and they just immediately were the guy was AJ. AJ came in the Rumble, and then 7 months later, this dude was the world champion. You know what I'm saying?
And he was
world title rings,
but he was 43. That's the thing. I think Vince still has in his idea like how it was in the 80s when it's like, yeah, but you were just picking the best wrestlers from all around. Like, there's a different, like CM Punk had, like, he already, like, right out of the gate, but also, like, he had multiple world title reigns by the time you brought him up. Yeah. Steve Austin had kind of been around. If you're wanting the next Dwayne Johnson or the next John Cena, you got to put young people in a spot before they're fully ready for it. So, yeah, that's with Montez. Like, Montez, you got to do it. You got to do it. I don't think Austin Theory is necessarily going to get to the next level as U.S. champion. Montez, let's go with Montez. I think it's time to give that guy, give him the shot, give him the real shot.
Look at Brian Mann, not only breaking down the ins and outs of this pro wrestling thing, but also I'm sure he is selling Peacock subscriptions as we speak, because now talking about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, everybody's got to go see season 4 of Young Rock or season 3 of Young Rock. I'm speaking into the universe for season 4. We need it. The people need it. Randall Park's accountant needs it. But Brian Mann, you are my Randall Park buddy. We've been telling stories to each other for many years. So before we let you get out of here, man, let the people know what you got going on, where they can find you if you want to be found, and anything else that comes to your mind, my brother.
Yeah, just if you're a wrestling fan, if you haven't watched it yet, go check out Outside Interference, the YouTube channel. Give it a subscribe. Maybe one day I'll put something else out. And in the meantime, just watch, First We Feast. Let me continue to get, a paycheck. Every time you watch Hot Ones, a little bit goes to me. So please go, stay. We got some great content coming out over this summer. I actually just spent. The reason why I was out in LA was for a show we were just shooting, and then I got to spend a week in Oklahoma for this really awesome, show we have coming out next month, all about burgers and whatnot. That's all I can say about it. But subscribe to First We Feast as well if you're not already for Hot Ones. But then also other great stuff we have coming out over the summer.
Yeah, I love First We Feast. Me and my girlfriend watch Hot Ones all the time. We watch the Burger Show. I'm missing Food Grails. I used to love that show with and all that. It's good stuff. So I highly recommend it to our listeners to watch First We Feast.
If you're a Burger Show fan, next month you're gonna be very happy. I saw George just last night. We got to go to Oklahoma. We got to go to Oklahoma for a week and go to the birthplace of the fried onion burger. I think people are gonna be happy with what we got coming out next month.
I'm hungry now. Man, I ain't never had that before. I don't know.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I ain't never had
it's
that
worth
before.
it. It's worth it.
Yes, well, this has been worth it too, Brian Mann. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed what you heard tonight, and maybe this is your first time hearing his brother Brian Mann, check out all of the projects he's mentioned, all of the great stuff that he's created. Check out the archives here on Post of Keep It 2000, where Brian and I tried and somewhat succeeded, like glass half full on that, to cover WCW Nitro in the year 2000 with a wide range of guests on that program. Check out Review America, which Brian and I have done from time to time here on Post. So, Brian Mann is a good part of the extended Post family. Support the brother when you can, because he's out here making good stuff. And I'm going to do this, Brian. Maybe I'm overstepping my boundaries. But when you make part 2 of the Cody Rhodes documentary and you want to focus on the section where Cody Rhodes ended racism inside an AEW ring, I need to be one of the people you interview for that, brother.
I did find it weird that they didn't include that in the A&E biography of Dusty Rhodes.
It's a big part of the story.
That's how they should have ended it. But listen, Nate, I always have a great time, chatting with you. From any of the numerous appearances I've done on your shows or the shows that we did. Even before I came on, I remember that time period, man, probably like 2015, where like every Friday night was you and I staying up watching Impact for some reason, you know, and then talking about it. And, you plugged all the shows we've done. I will not
being
plug,
threatened by somebody who will not be named on this show because I don't want legal trouble.
Yes.
I wish I could have did that Review America show, because I could have told y'all that it wasn't looking that dire for Donald Trump, because I was reading the tea leaves, and the people that I follow, like Alan Lichtman and what's her name? But all the people that I follow in my political circles were telling me that they didn't want to come out and say Trump was going to win, but they weren't they weren't confident in Hillary.
Yeah.
I
mean, listen, we got that call wrong, but it all worked out in the end, right? It was a great,
it worked out
long-term booking.
It worked out as good as it could work out. So, and he's going to lose in 2024 if he gets the nomination. I'm calling that right now.
I don't think he gets that far, because I mean the thing, and okay, we're going to give the people a little sample of Review America.
Let's do it. Let's do it, Brian.
The thing to remember about Donald Trump is that the guy was never terribly popular, and he won the election by a very small margin in 3 states, and then lost by like 2 or 3 million votes nationwide. So like, remind yourself of that. The guy was never hugely, like massively popular, and then he lost pretty big in re-election. So I think if he makes it to the primary, he probably gets the nomination. But yeah, that is what it is. But I will say, just to wrap it up, please go check out all the shows that Nate and I have done together. They really were a blast, making them. However, don't try to find Review and Impact. I know there were probably some conversations you and I had before we were fully aware that the internet was a permanent place, and I'm very happy for those episodes to disappear.
I've got some bootleg episodes of Review and Impact in the same trunk that I've got my bootleg Nefarious Means Cody Rhodes shirt. So if anybody wants those archives, holla at your boy.
We gave the people honest conversation. Maybe it was too honest.
It was ahead of its time, Brian.
Yes, it was.
It was great stuff, man.
Yes, there's so many shows that Brian Mann and I have done. We could spend the rest of our night talking about this, but Brian, unlike Chris's stereotype, is a wrestling enthusiast that actually has a life and has things to do on a Saturday night. And so we're gonna let Brian go, but there's always an open chair here on the NWA podcast for you, my friend.
I appreciate it. And I also want to say, Kris and Andrew, is great chatting with you. Getting to actually, cut it up here for the last, 2 hours or so. Andrew actually doing a show together and not just the intro to one.
Brian, you not believe how many times Andrew brings up that show, because that was the Tessa Blanchard Hard to Kill show. And just, yes.
Oh, hey, why were you on that? Nate, did you see Tessa Blanchard's apology to the
I
Rosen
saw
Nate?
it. I don't.
You know what that means, right?
I don't know.
Get low. Them funds get low. That's what it means now. You got to make that apology.
She got bills to pay.
So she can get back
exactly.
She think
she already spent up that women in wrestling money.
That's what it is. See what I'm saying? She thinks she's slick. She thinks she's slick. I'm telling you, that's all that is. Them funds getting low, so she got to make the apology. You know what I'm saying? She made sure to craft it real well. She didn't add in the usual, I'm sorry if you were offended.
Right,
you know what I'm saying?
Right.
She crafted a very social media worthy apology. You know what I'm saying? There you go. She'll be back in somebody's company sometime soon, I'm pretty sure.
Yes. But Brian Mann, we've enjoyed your company. We're gonna let you go. We've held you here. We've done the reverse Tony Schiavone. Tony's always saying we're out of time. Brian has given us more time tonight than initially was discussed. So we appreciate it, man. You have a good night, my friend.
Brian.
And we will catch up with you down the road, brother.
Quite the overrun, but I appreciate you having me. And anytime you need me again in the future, take care. It's been a pleasure.
Brian Mann, live from the Satellite of Hate, showing up here on the NWA podcast. So we got one more story to touch upon, Andrew, because I know Kris wanted to talk about this. So I'm gonna let the people know what we're gonna talk about before we get out of here.
Let's do it. We already ran over time. We got to send John away an extra little something for the overrun, like they want a media or something like that. Got to pay extra for the overrun, man. But here we go. I know Chris wanted to talk about this most recently, as of this week that we're talking now. Ted DiBiase Jr., former WWE talent, has been charged with taking money from a fund for needy families in Mississippi. This is the exact same situation that involves his brother Brett and his father Ted. Brett recently pled guilty. I think in March, Brett pled guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to defraud the government. As far as Big Ted, his father, that man out there making the meet and greet rounds like ain't nothing happening. You know what I'm saying? He like it's whatever out here. He doing this thing. But for those that don't know, that all of them were accused, and now Brett has been charged of receiving millions of dollars in welfare funds. The money that Ted DiBiase Jr. received was for food programs. And involved in this whole scandal is Paul Davis, who's the executive director of the Mississippi Department of Human Services. DiBiase Jr. was awarded a sham contract for delivery of social services. That money was given to DiBiase's companies for services that he did not provide. And he is now being charged with 1 count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud, 6 counts of wire fraud, 2 counts of theft concerning programs, receiving federal funds, and 4 counts of money laundering. Dr. Chris.
Get him, Chris.
Yeah, Jesus Christ, man. I'm a big proponent because one of the things I do is I work with people that are prisoners and stuff like that. I think that redemption is a big part of what makes our society run the way it at its best is when someone's able to redeem themselves and stuff. So I do think that Ted DiBiase deserves the benefit of having his case heard. But yeah, this just doesn't look good at all. And the problem with this happening in Mississippi, of all places, a lot of these people, and Brett Favre was a part of it also.
Yep.
Ted DiBiase Sr. Is the biggest issue that I have with this is these are poor Black people that are feeling the grunt of this, and the reason why the voting people in Mississippi don't vote as much as they could, especially Black people, is because of stuff like this. You know, they don't believe in the system out there.
Speak on it.
And the fact that Ted DiBiase, again, if he is guilty of this, then he deserves to be in jail along with his. And I was watching a clip of him on the news the other day, and he was leaving the courthouse, and one of the reporters was standing outside of the courthouse, and then he said something like, Jesus loves you or something to the guy.
That's the go-to right there, boy. Yeah. That's the go-to right there.
Yeah, that kind of crap right there.
Yeah, I got something for that, Chris.
And I've heard people like, Sid Justice and Hockey Talk Man talk about how full of crap they think DiBiase Sr. is when it comes to the God stuff. I remember listening to Sid on Hannibal, and he was saying that this dude gets a grip of money. Like, he'll go to the church, but you gotta like just pay him like thousands of dollars to do that kind of stuff, So and again, if any of them are,
he got a podcast on next month too.
Yeah, of course. I mean, this is disgusting, and I'm not a religious person at all. Nate, I'm counting on Nate to put in a good word for me with St. Peter and Jesus and all that when it comes to getting to heaven, because I don't fuck with church on any level anymore. But at the same time, I do know I grew up in the church. My grandfather was a missionary. My family are still holy rollers and stuff. And there's a lot of good people that are a part of good churches, and they don't deserve to be ripped off. And people and poor people don't deserve to be ripped off either.
Yeah, let me get that hot tag, Chris. Let me get that hot tag, brother.
Yeah.
This again, innocent until proven guilty. We know that. We respect that. But if they did this, man, this is low. You know, I said the same thing about the Brett Favre situation. You know, when that happened and when the news of that came out. Not only are you out here involved in shady activities, but you're involved in shady activities that hurt the least fortunate of your community, right? This is not stealing money from a corporation, Chris. You know, this is not stealing money from a bank, Andrew. This is stealing money that is going for food for people of low income, right? For people that need this, you know, to sustain themselves. And it's especially despicable when it comes from a family and a man, particularly thinking about, you know, DiBiase Sr., that spout, you know, that they are Christians and that they believe in the gospel and they follow the teachings of Jesus.
Those people usually be the biggest bullshitters.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and that's the thing, you know, we've seen it, especially, you know, getting back to politics, we've seen it especially over the last 4 or 5 years, where you've got people that claim to be Christians acting anything but Christ-like. And so it's like, if you truly are about that God lifestyle, Ted DiBiase, Jesus, one of Jesus' biggest things is feed the least of us, clothe the least of us, help the least of us. And you are not only using the Lord's name in vain to line your pockets, but you are taking food and resources that need to go to these folks. And primarily, as Chris alluded to, man, a lot of them look like us, Andrew. And so let me finish real quick, nephew. And I feel like that's like, I didn't even know this was happening until Chris sent the story in the group chat. And it's like, yeah, we have to talk about this, because not only is it despicable on a level of somebody claiming to be Christ-like or claiming to, you know, follow that faith, but just on a human level, Andrew. Like, how do you take food out of the mouth of a hungry kid, man? The only way you can do that is if you don't see them as human. You know what I mean? And you only see the paper. You only see the money, because everybody's got a price. And so, yeah, this to me is very low. And like, again, as Chris said, innocent until proven guilty. But if they are guilty of this, I hope they see jail for a long time, brother.
Like, and even like I think you just chalk it up to they thought they was gonna get away with it. I think it's just that simple. They thought they was gonna get away with it. And like when you like with DiBiase, it was also noted in that story that he was using, DiBiase Jr. was losing that money to buy, like, allegedly using that money to buy, like, cars, the boat, and like put up down payment on a house and
stuff
all that
stuff you don't need.
You know what I'm saying? And stuff like that. And like, honestly, I just thought that they was gonna keep riding this wave and they was gonna get over it. It didn't, when you have somebody involved in this who's the executive director or the head of the department of all this, you know what I'm saying? It's like, you probably really think you're gonna get away with it. So when I'm looking at, and bro, even what you were saying, Nate and Chris, about, you know, taking away from people in these low income areas, especially when it comes to food resources, a lot of things, a lot of these low income areas, bro, they're like food deserts. Like, there are a lot of, like, and that's not even just that's like a United States of America thing. Like, there's a lot of low income areas that have like food, like they're like very, and when I say food, for like people that don't know what I'm saying, like when I say food deserts, like there isn't like a lot of places where you can get like fresh produce and like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, you know, you go ahead, Chris.
And you drive on Crenshaw Boulevard in Los Angeles. Once you hit like South Central, there's like a Popeyes on every single corner. There's liquor stores on every single corner.
Yep.
There's a McDonald's,
7-Eleven,
KFC, all that shit that's not
fast
processed.
Yeah, things to be eaten at that time. And like Chad, just I saw your message, Chad. And yeah, this is a thing that is very, very common amongst wrestlers. You know, they live the most dirtiest, hardcore, disgusting lives possible. And then when that well runs dry, they find religion and do this kind of crap. And I really do not like it, you know. And I've heard from more than one person. I only mentioned Sid's name because Sid is the one that stated it publicly, so you could look that up. But there are other people who've talked about the way the DiBiases move, in particular Papa DiBiase, Trillionaire Ted, and just the way they milk this church thing, the Star of David ministry, or what's it? Not Star of David, Heart of David. Ministries that Ted DiBiase has, and from what I hear, I'm not gonna accuse the man of anything, but from people that I trust, they say that this guy is a swindler and he takes money from people. Brett Favre,
he ain't gonna be talking about this shit on this podcast.
Of course not, because again, this is the next level of the grift, and
big grift.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, I feel bad for Ted DiBiase Jr. because he never really got the fairest of shakes when he was in WWE. They saddled him with a bunch of stupid stuff, but I should have expected something out of that dude when he quit WWE to become a youth pastor or youth minister or something like that. That just never sat well with me. It was like, okay. And I'm not saying it's always all about the money, but
in this case,
it's a cash grab, bro.
When I find out, like, people were like, "Oh, it's good that he's quitting wrestling to become a youth pastor," and I always side-eyed that shit. I was like, "Yeah, he's quitting wrestler to become a youth pastor." I seriously wonder what else is going on there.
Like you, Chris, I grew up in the church. I know how much youth pastors get paid, man, and it ain't WWE money. So the only reason he's going to leave that job to go to that job, Andrew, is if the money is equal or better.
Yeah. No, but man, when you look at this situation overall, like, of course, we mentioned that Brett DiBiase has already pled guilty. So I don't think Ted has been charged yet. I don't think so, but I know, of course, his son, Ted DiBiase Jr. has been charged. It's going to be very interesting to see if he is convicted, in this case, because, like, you got all the stuff that he's being charged with. And then on top of that, like, using that money for his own personal gain. I mean, all of them were, but, like, just to hear, like, to see it, like, in the formal writing, that type of setting, like, to see exactly the things that he's using that money for, and to know that the people involved are the people that, like how these communities rely on to provide these services. You know what I'm saying? It's like that. You got to be like a different type of Grammy to move like that. And like I always say this, bro. Whatever's like done in the dark, eventually gonna come to the light at some point.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? It's always gonna come to the forefront. So whatever happens regarding this case, they gonna get what's coming to them.
What good is it if a man gains the whole world yet he loses his soul?
Yeah. And we will be paying attention to this story.
I'm glad you brought it to our attention, Chris.
Oh yeah, because I saw this and I was like, my God, man, this is the typical wrestling bullshit that turns me off of professional wrestling in a lot of ways, and everybody. Not everybody, but a lot of wrestlers try this at one point or another. They do this. And some people I think are authentic about it. Like, I do think that Sting.
That's the first guy that came to my mind, Chris.
I don't think he's the piece of crap that I think some of these other ones that I question are. Maybe Shawn Michaels is real in his faith walk. I said fake walk. That wasn't done on purpose, HBK.
Freudian slip, my brother.
Yeah. You already blocked me on Twitter. I don't even follow.
He saw you talking that dirty about NXT. He had to get you out of there.
Yeah. You probably saw that because I've never even thought about Shawn Michaels outside of this stuff. So I don't know what he's doing blocking me. I've never tweeted at that dude. I've never.
Chris got beef on these streets.
Yeah.
So you talking down on Von Wagner? He was like, buddy.
But yeah, there's a lot of these wrestlers that do that. Like one of my friends told me that Nikita Koloff was full of shit. I can't verify or deny that, but this is what I've been told. I heard about all these cats, and I heard they all get on this fucking religious grift, and whatever. What did Anthony said?
He sent in a $5 donation. Shout out to the money. Shout out to T Anthony for the money, brother. Appreciate appreciate that. Man.
Unlike the DiBiases, we getting this money legally.
He said, I guess I shouldn't be surprised by a guy who's the $1 million man, sad and despicable.
Yeah. I think a lot of times, and that was the thing too. It's like all these guys, because they talked about all the cheating they did and stuff like that, and all the crap that they did on the road.
Hey, Nate, Chris, do y'all remember? I think this was back in. I think this was last year when I went to the convention out of North Carolina, and I told you I tried to interview Ted DiBiase, but I had forgot about that. He was in this, like he was still like this scandal situation was still going on. And I remember I told you I went over there to try to go interview him, and the dude, I think it was his agent or his manager, he was like, no, and I was like, what the fuck you acting like that for, bro? I was like, what you got something against me or something like that? And then when I went back to my hotel room, I had looked his name up, and then I was like, oh.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, no, I yeah.
And DiBiase is one of those people too. Like when he found out that Virgil was like using his name to kind of get money from autograph signings or whatever, and he just had nothing good to say about Virgil doing that. And this dude is following your lead, my man.
Right.
Hey, Chris, did you see? So I had ran an article on Post like in late 20. This had to be fall 2022. Ted DiBiase had did it. I think it was like a meet and greet or something like that. When he said he was going to try to start reaching out to Virgil more or something like that. And then Virgil had commented on Post's Twitter account. He was like, "Don't be trying to use my name to get back in some good graces because everybody found out what you really were." And I was like,
"Oh, I don't remember that."
Yeah, he like put it on his Instagram and everything. Like he essentially was saying like, people finding out, I guess, who Ted really is or something like that. And he was like, don't be trying to use my name to get some goodwill points or whatever like that. Like talking about you gonna reach out to me. He was like, I ain't heard from you not once. So don't try to don't try to act like you know what I'm saying. No, he called him on his stuff. So man.
Well, good for Virgil. I historically speaking, I've met Virgil a couple times. He probably doesn't remember me.
Y'all shared unlimited soup and breadsticks at the Olive Garden.
Yeah. Both times I met the dude, he wasn't the nicest guy, to say the very least. But he doesn't deserve to, the stuff that's been happening to him and whatnot. And Ted DiBiase going on talk shows and just bashing this dude.
He be going in on Virgil, bro.
Yeah,
he be going in.
Yeah, it'd be one thing if you weren't doing the exact same shit. You know what I'm saying?
That part.
At least with Virgil,
that part.
He's just using your name to tell people I bought an autograph from that dude. He's charging $20 for him. Whatever. $20. I don't give a fuck. But I think what Virgil did using Ted DiBiase's name to get autographs and people to give him money. I think that's more of a victimless crime than the shit.
Right. People are willingly paying for this autograph.
Right. Yeah. You're the one paying $20 for a fucking Virgil autograph.
Yeah. Virgil is not taking food out of the mouths of hungry kids.
Yeah, exactly. And I have to say this about Virgil, this as a little bit of a sidebar. I do not know how this guy is allegedly not the richest guy on the planet. I've seen this dude on the subway in New York, in Philly and in Los Angeles.
Mr. Worldwide.
Like, and nobody believed me about the LA one until a recent picture. I was like, I swear I saw this dude Virgil at the Hollywood and Highland station out here selling, having these 8x10s and pictures of himself and shit. Like, dude, are you spending all your money on airfare
on travel?
Like, what the hell is going on, my dude? This dude is all over the place.
Hey, bro.
Mr. Worldwide.
Shout out Virgil, man. That man.
Dolly.
Born hustler right there.
There you go.
Hey, Nate.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Andrew, real quick before we wrap up. Any last thoughts, brother?
I'm about to say, let's go ahead because I know that Tank Davis Ryan Garcia fight about to pop off.
Yeah, man.
You know what I'm saying?
So, yeah, we got to wrap up so we can go. We can go from giving Ted DiBiase money to giving Dana White money because that's the world we live in, folks. But before we get out of here, we want to thank everybody that has tuned in tonight live, checking us out on the Post Wrestling YouTube. We want to thank everybody listening in the future to the audio version of the podcast. And we, of course, want to thank Brian Mann for beaming down from the satellite to show some love and share some thoughts on all things WrestleMania and the WWE sale and also CM Punk, the Muffin Man. So shout out to that good brother, Brian Mann. But Andrew, speaking of good brothers, let the people know where they can find you, nephew, what you got coming up here on Post and any other thing that you want to let the people know before we sign off tonight.
Yeah, man, they can follow me on Twitter, @Thompson __. Exact same thing on Instagram. Check out the YouTube channel, Andrew Thompson Interviews, uploading clips up there. And you can check out my written work over on the Post Wrestling site, man. We doing some great work, great written work, great podcasts, much like this one that we do, the NWA podcast. Check out monthly, and we will be back in May.
The chat too for the best show on Post.
Appreciate it.
I'll accept that compliment.
hey, man, look, that's like Post got a lot of great shows though. So that's like saying Post is an all-star team, Andrew. That's like saying we the KD or the Steph Curry or the LeBron or the Post all-star team. That's high praise.
Talk to him.
Speaking of our own MVP, you know what I'm saying? He got them jerseys up in the background. I think I saw Kobe. I think I might have seen Sadell Threet, like a random Sadell Threet jersey.
He got the kufi on and everything. Look at him.
Got the kufi on. Professor Chris did not play this week.
Up at the moment, but,
inspired by Cody.
Yeah.
But Chris, let the people know. I think you're right, Andrew. Chris was inspired by Kofi. He tapped into his roots. Chris, let the people know where they can find you, brother. Anything you got going on. I know you're doing some good work with our brother Brandon Thurston, light-skinned cousin Brandon over at WrestleNomics. So let the people know where they can find you and anything else you got coming up, Doc.
Yeah, you can't. After WrestleMania this past year, can't nobody accuse Cody of not knowing what the struggle is like, man. So shout out to Cody Rhodes. You will overcome, my dude. Whether it's NW or back in AEW.
Hey, Chris, real quick. I wanted to ask you this actually while you on it. Do you think Cody know about the jokes?
Oh, he knows. He
gotta know. He gotta know.
About it, so,
he gotta know.
The ultimate goal is to get him on the show or Brandy on the show or both on the show at the same time. I don't care. Cody is doing our show. I'm putting this out in the atmosphere.
That's right. Manifested,
Chris.
Going to be on NWA before the end of next year.
Manifested, Chris.
Yeah.
But,
yes. And I will call him Devante live to his face.
Yeah. But he knows about this shit by now.
He knows.
It's become it's taken on a life of its own.
Especially when that picture came out of him and Bianca. He knows.
Yeah.
He know.
Yo, look, the fact that you had so many, like, not just us, not just people that watch this stuff and cover this stuff, you had so many black wrestlers that were hyped for Cody going into WrestleMania. Cody knows.
Yeah, he knows, bro. You know.
Cody Luther King on these streets.
Right. So yeah. I don't know if I'm going to WrestleMania next year, but I will.
It depends on if Roman Reigns is still the champ.
Yeah, I'm not wasting my time.
He gonna be.
But I will go to the events surrounding WrestleMania next year in Philly, if that's the case. And
speaking of somebody that has no time for Roman Reigns, Chris, look who just popped into the chat.
Jermaine Jones,
the hater from Chi-Town, is in the building.
Oh, you would have liked this show today, Jermaine, if you caught us a little bit.
The second greatest hater from Chicago after the Muffin Man.
Well, I know on April 2nd, midnight, Jermaine was doing backflips on his bed when he heard that 3 count.
Yeah,
I know he was crazy.
We got to get Jermaine on the show one day because I think his
let's get Jermaine on when Roman Reigns lose. Let's get him.
Yes. Whenever the Roman Reigns finally drops the belt, Jermaine will be on the NWA podcast.
Get Jermaine on the podcast.
Yeah, his hateration for Roman has kind of.
This man been hating for like 3-4 years straight, Chris.
Yeah.
No days off.
Yeah. Hey, man, shoot, but I think he deserves a chance to orate why he hates Roman Reigns so much. He deserves at least that chance because I don't
equal time.
When you're typing, I don't think the hatred it's not as understandable when you're talking about it, right? So
Roman probably put hands on Jermaine when they was in school when they was kids. Probably beat the shit out of Jermaine. Jermaine didn't let that go. I'm playing Jermaine.
Jermaine hit us with the super chat.
Hey, I take back what I said. I'm sorry.
We
Jermaine.
See you, brother.
Appreciate you, bro. Hey, appreciate you, man. Shout out Jermaine. I was about to clown him about the Mandy Rose thing. I ain't gonna do that though. Jermaine, shout out to you, bro. I ain't gonna mess with him no more.
Don't do it to the brother. We appreciate you, Jermaine.
Shout out to Jermaine, man. It's good people right there. Good people.
Yeah, Jermaine's a good dude, man.
Finish your outro, Chris. We got all sides.
Yeah, what else you got going on, Chris?
Oh, well, again.
Hold on, Chris. Before I let you finish your plugs, I would be a bad host if I didn't bring this up. You know, we talked a lot about what happened with Cody at Mania, but also shout out to some of the other cultural moments at Mania. Bianca, with the Queens out there, like that was a beautiful moment. I was emotional when you know they got out there and they was dancing with Bianca. That was beautiful. But maybe the most important moment for Chris, we saw Brock, Omos Sapien stand up. Chris, any words for that good brother Omos as we leave tonight?
Yeah, I was really hoping that I would see him at Wale Mania, and I didn't get access to any of the wrestlers because I didn't get to the building on time. But yeah, man, it would have been great to see him.
He lucky he didn't show up for his own safety. Tell him, Chris.
The next day with Andreas, his event with the Black Wrestling Media. That was a very, very awesome event, and Big Swole enlightened me on a lot of things at that
shout out to the good sister Big Swole.
Yeah. So it's just I do owe the post community an apology because I was just so out of it the next morning because the thing is we didn't get home from Wale Mania until about 1 a.m. And then the next morning, Andreas's event was like I want to say it started at like 9:30 or 10, something like that. And I thought I was going to get some interviews. I talked to the Renegade Twins. I talked to Big Swole. I talked to everybody, and they were like, "Oh yeah, all of them were super sweet." They're like, "Yeah, I'll give you an interview when you know." And my black ass was just.
Once we hit them mimosas, it was a wrap.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they were giving out free champagne. I had like a glass of champagne. Like a glass.
That joke faded.
And, you know, but
Chris was gone.
Yes, but last week I found out
Chris out there talking to the Renegade Twins. I've been drinking.
Y'all ever think about a third twin?
But yeah, I was
Let me stop messing with Chris, bro.
So hopefully next year in Philly we'll get it together and stuff.
Yeah. Man, let's invite Big Swole on the podcast next month.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, we do need to.
Chris, I'm gonna let you do that since you've already established a relationship with the good sister. But yeah, Big Swole will be fascinating to talk to.
Yeah, I need to ask Andreas if.
But shit, I reach out to Big Swole. Shit, I send her email. And the thing, I seen her on podcast too, but she good with like talking about like, because I mean, a lot of wrestlers, they don't like talking about like current, you know what I'm saying? Because they know these people and it's like, but she be, you know what I'm saying? She down to talk rap, talk about the reports and all that stuff. She cool.
Yeah, and she went off on like Tony Khan at that event too. You know, she made a lot of things make more sense to me.
Right.
I still don't think it was the smartest thing for Lio Rush to, you know, call dude out publicly, but the way Big Swole told the story is they said he kind of knew what was coming once he did something like that, you know. Mm-hmm. So I mean, you know, it is what it is. As long as you knew, you know.
Right. Yeah, you gotta respect the principle.
I'm about to say, bro, and then Lio Rush's contract was up that February, so it was like a month away. So I mean, if you want to do some shit like that, then I was like, you know, you're your way out anyway. So it's like, you know what I'm saying?
Just go out with the bang, shit.
Hell yeah.
Speaking of going out with a bang, brother Nate, finish us off.
Let me come through. Bang. Okay. First of all, shout out to the good people over at Nefarious Means. I'm gonna do my own camera work here. Bang for everybody. You know what I'm saying?
Hey Nate, make them say what?
Make them say nah. Shout out to that good brother Cody Devante Rhodes. But yeah, if you want to hear more from me, you already know. First of all, Post Wrestling, NWA Podcast every month. We gonna do what we do. Also, and I'm gonna keep teasing this till it happens, Andrew, because as long as I keep teasing it, you know, eventually it's gonna pay off. It's kind of like, Andrew, if I owe you money, as long as I owe you, you'll never be broke, brother.
Man, and I'm about to say, Nate, it's like building to the CM Punk's return. You know, you ain't gonna know it till you know.
You ain't gonna know it till it happens, right? It's the worst kept secret. But the Rocky Maivia Picture Show is here on Post Wrestling. Check out the archives. Brian Mann has been a guest. Andrew's been a guest. Chris has been a multiple time guest on the Rocky Maivia Picture Show. So check out the archives and stay tuned, because you never know when that Black Adam episode might drop. It might drop next week. It might drop 52 weeks from now. You never know. But keep your eyes and ears out for that. Also, I am on the Kings of Sport. You know, that's the home base, Kings of Sport. This is our 10th year of doing the Kings of Sport podcast. You know, appreciate it. Andrew and Chris, both big parts of the Kings of Sport over the years. We kind of in the midst of a remodel, if you will. We like going through phases right now. Marcus Vanderberg, big part of the show, is now doing big things with ESPN. So it's been me and Chris and, you know, kind of our collected friends for the last year or so, but I think I'm ready. I think I'm ready for the relaunch, Chris. I think I'm ready for you know, we new logo, new intro. You know what I'm saying? New hosts. I think we're ready for it. So I'm not saying it's gonna happen this month or, you know, next month, but soon. The Kings of Sport is gonna relaunch to celebrate our 10th year. Check out the Patreon while you're waiting for that, though. Patreon, $5 gets you in the door. If you want to pay more, I'm not going to stop you. Not in this economy. I know some of y'all got that tax money. So, you know, we would appreciate that. $5. Patreon.com/The Kings of Sport. Over 300 hours of audio, video, talking sports, wrestling, politics, pop culture, movie reviews, a lot of stuff on there. Sports, of course. But check that out. And then the last thing I'm going to promote is the Multiverse of Color. It is a venture that was formerly known as the DCTV Podcast, but because Warner Brothers is all crazy, Chris, Andy and the crew over there decided to rebrand it. So it's going to be, you know, not only podcast content, but articles, videos, talking about pop culture and nerd stuff through the lens of multicultural contributors. And I am part of the Lituation Room, which is me, Vanessa Shark, Clement Bryant, and the wonderful Brittany Monet. Check out the Lituation Room. We should have an episode out next month talking about some stuff, maybe the Marvels, maybe Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Who knows? Maybe we'll still be talking about Black Adam because it changed the game, Chris. Hey, the Hollywood has never seen anything before or since that can match what Black Adam brought to the table. But for everything else, follow me on Twitter at N.W.A, MOZAIK, at Nate Mosaic. Also, if you out there and you nice with your editing skills or you might be nice with your podcasting skills, holla at me. Because like I said, Kings of Sport going through a relaunch. So I want to bring in as many new voices to the table as I can. So, check out. What you got, Chris? What you got?
Tomorrow,
yeah, Chris, hold on. Let me put you back front and center, Chris, because I'm excited for this. Chris, it was originally supposed to be me and Chris, but work got in the way. So, Chris, tell them what you got going on Sunday, like Sunday, in 30 minutes. It'll be Sunday. So tonight, tell them what you got, Chris.
Yeah, I'm gonna be on One Gotta Stay tomorrow. So check that out. And I didn't even realize that me and my dude,
Amaru Rue?
Yeah, we know a lot of the same people. I had no clue that he knew all the people that I mess with out here in LA. So I'm looking.
Yeah, Rue's a good dude, man.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to doing that show. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I gave him, because I did promise him I would promote it, but all this wrestling talk.
Yeah, check Chris out tomorrow, 3 Eastern. One Gotta Stay, Andrew. Basically, what they're gonna be talking about tomorrow, they're going over John Cena, The Rock, Dave Bautista, or The Field, and choosing who is the best in terms of wrestlers acting. So that's gonna be a crazy conversation.
Big Dave. It's Big Dave, bro.
Andrew, how could you say that after you watch Planet 51, Andrew?
Hey, real quick. I gotta say this because I know we've been going on the Planet 51 joke. Nate definitely gave me my chance to redeem myself. What was that movie with Kevin Hart and The Rock? What was that?
Oh, Central Intelligence.
Central Intelligence. Nate
that was
definitely
good.
That was one of my favorite. Definitely better than Planet 51. I can. But was that during the pandemic? Was that early pandemic?
I think it was early pandemic. Yeah.
Right, well, I mean, I wasn't doing shit anyway, so it's all
look, low key. I hate to say it like this, Andrew, because a lot of people were struggling during the pandemic. I lost, people close to me during the pandemic. But in terms of creating stuff, that was a crazy time. It was just all of us is in the house with nothing to do. Let's do a show.
Ain't got nothing better to do.
Yeah. Ain't got nothing better to do.
Hey, but look though, y'all said y'all about to relaunch Kings of Sport. Look, hey man, look, I ain't saying nothing. But I'm saying something.
There
you go. That's all.
Okay. Kind of like what I was doing earlier with Brock and Cody. If you know, you know.
If you know, there you go. You know what I'm saying? might already got a deal worked out.
You never know. You never know. Andrew Thompson.
I probably already signed a contract.
From nephew to king. You don't even know. Well, that's gonna do it, man. Because for real, I think Wei Ting is standing in the corner, just looking at all this bandwidth that we done ate up tonight. So we sorry, but you know what it is. You know how we do.
We love Wei Ting, the man. Brother.
Shout out to John and Wei for providing the platform, man, and shout out again to everybody watching and listening. We appreciate it. We'll do it again next month, maybe talking with Big Swole. So we'll see, but either way, it's gonna be a fun show next month.
Next month, I believe, is before Double or Nothing, so we will be doing Double or Nothing predictions.
Yes, we will be doing Double or Nothing predictions. So I'm sure we'll be talking about the Muffin Man again. We can't get away from him. I wonder what Vince is gonna do in the next month to get us to talk about him again.
He gonna do some shit.
He gonna do something. He gonna grow his mustache thicker. Out here looking like my man off the Addams Family. But anyway, for Chris, for Andrew, and for our special guest Brian Mann, I am the Godfather Nate Milton, and we appreciate y'all for checking out this episode of the NWA Podcast exclusively here on Post Wrestling. You can't get this anywhere else. Not on Peacock, not on HBO Max. You only get this at Post Wrestling. And no, Andrew, I'm not stalling just so I can find where the theme music is. I'm really meaning that. But yes, for Andrew, for Chris, for Brian, man, I'm the Godfather. Appreciate y'all for listening tonight. We had a lot of fun. We're going to do it again next month. And remember, The revolution may not be televised, but it damn sure will be podcasted. See y'all next month.
Yo, it's Righteous Reg. It's a case for the safe, keep a space for the Nubians. Unfiltered, off kilter, the professor, the godfather, post wrestling, the NWA, not keep guessing, The views and expressions, you know the rest, it's pod excellence, get the message. Advocates for Nubian wrestling, you're listening to the best again. Black wrestling in the ring, we invested in. Nubian kings and queens, we invested in. It's for the culture and we reppin' it. It's for the culture and we reppin' it.